Good afternoon all. Daniela Williams, good afternoon to you. Carol Myers, hi Carol. Yes, on this hot and sunny day, this is weather for beach or River Lime. Sedena Kwashi, good afternoon to you. Apollinus 3771, good afternoon. PF Cutters, good afternoon. Claire, how was your event last night at Napa? I think it's Napa. The tribute to Lord Kitchener. PF Cutters, 29 Super C, good afternoon to you. That's $1 million question everybody's asking. Is SOE really happening in Trinidad and Tobago? Jennifer Ashby Okuli, good afternoon. Michelle Nero. Anna Sisnat, hi Anna. Anna, you need to send some of that cold Canadian weather down this side. Not too much though. Philomen Green, good afternoon to you. Dawn Khan, good afternoon. Dawn G. Dimple 66. Nikisha Sylvester. Jamun Alemu here. Helen Faria, good afternoon to you. Beverly Jones, hi. Mr. Music, Mana and Niles. Wayne Pedro, good afternoon to all of you guys. And today, the 116 of you all who are on. Yeah, well, as has become the norm on my Sundays, I will have to jump off a little earlier again today too, because I have an event to attend. So last night, my colleague from the constituency of Trin City Maloney had an event in Bonaire entitled Bonaire Brass, Iron versus Steel, the ultimate showdown. And it was a showdown between the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service ban and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force ban. And it was pretty good, I must say, pretty good. So you had the TTPS steel ban, and then you had, of course, the brass ban. So we got a double whammy from the TTPS, and we got from the Defense Force. And it was a free concert, in fact. Well, I would call it that, a concert. And I think it was broadcast live, because I saw my good friend Teresa Conliffe, who is back in Canada. She would have messaged me indicating that she saw me on the footage. So if you didn't get to catch it in person, I don't know if where it was streamed. I'll probably find out, so you could check it out. But it was pretty good, I must say. Really good. And we need more stuff like that in the constituencies. So I intend to ask Camille, as I told her last night when I brought greetings, I intend to ask her, or to beg, for us to have another installment of that in the constituency of Malabar, Mausika. Right? So, yeah. So let me just get this here. 1 second. Turn that off. Rutrude, good afternoon. Anon, good afternoon to you. Right, so Jennifer Frederick, hey Jenny. Let me jump on, of course, with the trending story this morning, the murder of a police officer at, so let me get this here. So let me pull this up here. Right. Let me just get this here. Yes. Officer murdered, 62 guns and 4,000 rounds of ammunition taken. This is a developing story by Mark Basant, Susan Mohammed, and it says a female municipal police officer has been found dead at the San Fernando Municipal Police Station as investigators probe the disappearance of firearms from the station's strong room. The deceased has been identified as Anusha Eversley, an acting corporal attached to the Trinidad and Tobago Municipal Police Service, and I understand that she is the niece of Wendell Eversley, activist Wendell Eversley. So condolences goes out to Wendell and family. And he's now calling for the resignation of the Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander. It goes beyond Alexander because you had to go all the way up to the top. But so far, I have not seen any statement issued by the Honorable Prime Minister. I did see video footage of the Minister of Homeland Security when he arrived at the municipal police station where the officer was killed. But I have not seen any official statement coming from him or any member of the government for that matter. But it's still early hours yet. So according to police reports, the officer was last seen around 11 p.m. on Saturday in the charge room area of the station at Kings Wharf, Lady Hales Avenue, and approximately 4:40 a.m. on Sunday, an officer returned to the area and observed it in darkness, and after switching on the lights, he noticed what appeared to be blood coming from the corporal quarters and that the strong room was open. Further checks revealed that a quantity of firearms, including shotguns, pistols, and a rifle, along with ammunition, were missing. Police sources confirmed the missing items include approximately 52 Glock pistols, 52, shotguns, 6 shotguns, 4 MPX-type firearms, and more than 4,000 rounds of ammunition, 9mm ammunition. Officers responding to the scene discovered Eversley lying motionless on a mattress inside the quarters. She was clothed in a bra and bleeding from the nostrils. She was later pronounced dead at the scene. And of course, investigations continue. The station remains under lockdown. So as a result of this development, we now have several UNC mouthpieces, spokespersons calling for the Prime Minister to implement a curfew. I don't see what difference a curfew is going to make, really, because these criminals, they've adapted, right, after almost 9 months of state of emergency. I mean, yeah, they learn the ropes. So what good is a curfew going to do other than to inconvenience the law-abiding public and also cause some level of harm to the economy, right? Because basically what you're going to do is to curtail nightlife. And so those businesses that operate make their money during the night hours. I mean, the bars have already been hit significantly with the increase in the cost of alcohol, the duties and so on, with the increase in the cost of bar licenses from $1,800 to some $9,000. I saw one, I think this is around the time of year when those licenses come due. And I saw one proprietor post up the receipt on Facebook where he went to make his payment and he showed his receipt from last year, $1,800, and they say he had to pay $9,000. Of course, this time last year, the People's National Movement was still in power, right? And if he was one of those who voted for the UNC, I'm certain that when he went to make that payment, he would have had some level of regret, as many people who would have voted for the UNC last year have had and continue to have on a daily basis. But it's interesting that the people who are now calling for this curfew are, in the main, UNC activists, UNC mouthpieces. And I came across one in particular. I tell you, if idiot was a person, let me see if I get this here. Some people, this is not somebody that I normally listen to, right? Because I've seen, let me see if I get this here. Listen to what I call donkey logic, aka UNC logic in the extreme. I'll just play a little piece.
And they could just run into a police crisis unfold. A woman police constable has been found shot dead inside the San Fernando City Corporation Municipal Police Office at the King's Wharf in San. Officer unresponsive with gunshot wounds inside the company and the potential use of those weapons in further criminal activity. I think our Prime Minister needs to put a curfew. This is very serious, but it leaves me with the question, was that police WPC alone in the station at the time this happened? How come she is killed? Where were the other officers? Are you telling me there was only one woman police officer, constable in the station? Something doesn't add up, people. And this need to be properly investigated. Maybe the PNM officers set up all of this. This doesn't sound right to me. And I am not going to sit down and butter that up. The Prime Minister probably needs to call an immediate curfew to handle what is taking place. No bandit could just run into a police station and there's others. Where are the other officers? Let's think. Where were the other officers? Maybe it is them who killed her and took the ammunitions and
maybe it's PNM officers who set this up. So we have PNM nurses and now we have PNM police officers too. There's a whole conspiracy in the public service, right? Everybody is PNM who trying to make the government look bad. And this clown who's supposed to be a pastor, right? She was the woman who had taken the HTC house unauthorized and occupied it and so on, and she was taken to court and under the PNM administration. The house was taken away from her. So she has an axe to grind with the PNM, but everything is PNM and PNM. So PNM police officers decided to kill one of their colleagues and steal several guns from a municipal police station to make the government look bad. To make the government look bad. That's the extent to which these idiots will go to, right? Because they cannot accept the fact that their government that they support and that they voted for is totally incompetent. They have no plan. They had no plan. 1 year later, the only thing that they have offered this country to fight crime is states of emergency. Nothing else, right? Nothing else. Increase fines for traffic offenses, and in order to try and keep the criminal element in check, you have states of emergency. But of course, when you've had extended states of emergency, it was inevitable that eventually the criminals would get tired and, and they would realize there's no real change. The only thing that these states of emergency have achieved is that the government has been able to somewhat curb the amount of crime by issuing detention orders of people who they believe might be criminal masterminds. All right. So you come up with some sort of trumped up charge or something. Well, not charge, but some trumped up intelligence that these people are involved in something or they're going to do something, and you come with a detention order and you lock them down for the duration of the state of emergency. So they're not outside, so they can't spearhead any criminal activities. But then we are told that criminal activities were being organized from within the prison walls, which is why they had to move certain people from the maximum security prison to Tetron and Stobbles Bay. Under the last state of emergency, none of these persons were charged with anything, despite the fact that we heard from the Commissioner of Police about intelligence, said that this was going to happen and that was going to happen. And the Attorney General's office, half of the Attorney General's office was supposed to have been blown off with a rocket launcher and so on. So these men were behind bars, so which means that the persons who were supposed to carry out these acts were outside the prison. Yet nobody was arrested and charged with any of those alleged offenses that were supposed to have taken place based on the intelligence gathered by the TTPS, and none of the masterminds were charged with any offense, and here we are. Here we are, right? We've crossed the 100 murder marker. Of course, it's difficult to ascertain the exact murder figure. Why? Because where do you look for it? You're getting different figures from different people, right? When you should be getting it from the government, from the TTPS, So the TTPS is quoting figures, but then we're seeing other people quoting different figures. So we know we're in the vicinity of maybe between 103, 100 and 100 plus. We've crossed the 100 marker. All right? But the people who 1 year ago, when we crossed the 100 marker, Rowley must go, Young must go, the PNM must go, the PNM lacks the political will to fight crime, and the PNM is part of the problem. They know all who had to go. We've crossed the 100 marker. Where are those bleeding hearts who support the current administration? Because PNM supporters, up is down, black is white, oh, the PNM is saying nothing because they like it so, and it's Rowley children and Eric Williams children who committing all these crimes. When you look at them as a South African, and that's what they're saying. Okay. Now, when murders take place, we read the comments, all we hearing from these people, oh, we must pray. Condolences to the family. This is so sad. And what have we become as a country? And no calls for anybody to go. So they were never really concerned about the crime situation. It was just convenient for them to talk rubbish about PNM must go and Rowley must go and who must go. Well, everybody, all of them gone. PNM is no longer in power. Rowley gone, right? Stuart Young is an ordinary MP. Okay. You all said that was the solution to the problem. And the sad thing is that this government and their supporters, the fully dons, so long as the murder rate remains below 626, they're good. The UNC must not have it's not an honor, but they must never have the highest murder rate bolted to their chest, right? Because once you do that, you take away from their support base the ability to be able to talk about the highest murder rate under the PNM and the PNM. So they're good. 300 murders, 400 murders, 500. Once they don't cross 626, which is the record under the PNM, we good. So it could be 600, still less than 626. So that the PNM could never say the highest murder rate took place under the UNC, and they're good with that. They couldn't care for the 600, while Mr. Alexander is telling us it's a work in progress. How much time that progress needs? How much time? How long is it going to be a work in progress? Well, tell us a little bit about the work. What is the work that is taking place? No, I can't tell her that because we can tell her that. That's a secret. And if we tell her, then we will be tipping off the criminal element so they will know what the government is doing. But meanwhile, 100 plus citizens so far for this year were waiting for this work in progress to make progress, and their time came, right? So whenever progress comes, it can't do anything for them, can't do anything for their families because they're already gone. So how many more must die before the work in progress becomes a completed work? And we could say, well, okay, this is where we're going. Because 12 months later, and we still waiting. Nothing concrete that we could point to. So, well, okay, yes, this is going to happen, this is taking place. All we get is a set of rhetoric and cliches from those in power. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, obviously looking for distractions, put out some statement about a reduction in serious reported crime and gave us some figures, as if that is supposed to be some sort of consolation as they prepare for the event next weekend to mark 1 year in office. Take note, that is not something that the PNM ever did, but when you are a never thought government, never thought you would get back into office, but here you are, thanks in the main to PNM supporters who decided to show that, the People's National Movement is a party that is held to a higher standard. All right, so cult here. When we vex with the leadership of the party, what do? We withhold our votes. And in so doing, in attempting to punish the leadership of the party, we hand the reins of power to the other party who couldn't care less about you all and who tell themselves, well, they ain't gonna vote for us anyway, so no need to do anything for them. Let them catch their tail. Okay. And then get up in the parliament and talk rubbish about they got an overwhelming mandate. Please. Please. But what is very instructive about the Prime Minister's statement is the use of the word, well, that's how the police report. Serious reported crime. See that word? Reported is very important. Of course, you would see a reduction if people are not reporting criminal activity. And people are not reporting when they are the victims of crime because they believe it's a waste of time. What's the point of going to the police station? They take a report and nothing going to come out of it. That is how people feel. It's a waste of time going to report it to the police because by the time you walk out the station, they have the view. That report probably end up in the garbage. I'm going to investigate anything because as the police probably figure, okay. So people feel as if they are just reporting as a matter of course, but nothing is going to come out of it. Perhaps they've had the experience before, may have been the victims of crime before, they went to report, nothing come out of it, so they know, yeah. Some people just not reporting. Maybe they're afraid to report because they know who the criminal is and they know if they go to the police to report that they might get a second visit and this time they may not survive this second visit. So you know what? Hush your mouth. And we're under a state of emergency. But that is their big boast, a reduction in serious reported crime. But they cannot make that boast about home invasions because the TTPS would have told us a couple of weeks ago that the home invasions are on the rise, despite the fact that stand your ground is now law. Stand your ground that was supposed to result in a reduction in the number of home invasions has not taken place. Right? And now we saw the Commissioner of Police speaking at some forum or some symposium last week, talking about firearms and having a firearm really and truly wouldn't really make a difference. Let me see if I find that here. I found it most interesting. Most interesting. Right. Yes. PM, you are safer as crime falls. Which crime is that, madam? As it pop up, let me read it. Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar has reported a significant decline in crime, stating that serious offences in Trinidad and Tobago have fallen by 30% so far this year compared to the same period in 2025. In a post on her official X, formerly Twitter account yesterday, so that is how you hear from the Prime Minister, via Facebook, via X, right? Not in front of a camera speaking to reporters, as Dr. Keith Rowley used to do, call a press conference and so on. The Prime Minister said the reduction reflects improved safety under her administration. You are safer under the UNC's leadership. I guess that is going to be the mantra for the event next week. She stated, adding that serious reported crimes, again, reported, dropped from 3,413 in 2025 to 2,397 in 2026. She also reported a 32% reduction in violent crimes, which fell from 1,219 last year to 829 this year. Prime Minister further outlined divisional improvements across the country, noting that the Northeastern Division recorded a 55% reduction in serious reported crimes, while Tobago saw a 41% decrease. Persad-Bissessar did not provide additional details on the specific measures contributing to the declines, but maintained that the figures reflect progress in national security efforts. What national security efforts? There are none. That is why she couldn't provide any details with respect to the specific measures, because they have none. A bunch of jokers, yes. Let me see if I find this thing here. Where is it? Right. Audit. COP says audit showed guns was sharing like nuts. That's one way to put it. All right, just give me 1 second. Let me just pull this up here.
Not because you have a FUL already, mean that we just give you a gun enough. That was one of the issues in one of the audit reports, that gun was sharing like nuts.
Police Commissioner Alistair Guevara speaking during a Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce event about the issue of variances to holders of firearms users licenses. Mr. Guevara was making an apparent reference to FULs that were approved before he was appointed as the police commissioner.
A man make an application in 7 months' time, he get 12 guns. Without an investigation. I telling you, I don't know what I am about to talk the truth in. No investigation in that file. So he is applying an approval. What is the reason you want 12 guns? You Rambo?
The police commissioner's Hollywood reference was followed by what he identified as a real-life challenge he presently faces where FUL applications are concerned.
I made a plea to the nation. Listen, we're dealing with a backlog of firearm applications. If it is you want a variation, it means that you have one already. If it is not a dire need, let us not clog.
Let me just get this here. Just give me 1 second here. Just hold that.
The system. But it is that if there's a need for the variation, I will entertain it.
However, the police commissioner had a warning for those seeking to legally own firearms as he made. It's still law in the United States.
Fear has convinced the population without a right to bear arms that everybody needs a gun. That is what fear is. Even when the data shows that licensed firearm owners are not immune from crime. Data shows that licensed firearm owners are not immune from crime. Most recently, we had a licensed firearm owner who was the victim of a homicide, and he died with his firearm inside of his holster.
Where the police service's strategy in winning the war on crime is concerned, the top cop said he did not want to give too many details.
There is a proposal currently for an increase in.
So being a firearm user, license holder does not make you immune from crime, right? So basically, the boss man tell her here, well, not because you have a FUL means that you're safe, that you're protected. But that's what the current administration were telling us when they were in opposition. The solution to home invasion is to get a gun. And we bring in legislation to make it easier for law-abiding citizens to acquire firearms. Here we are on the cusp of 1 year in office, and no such legislation has come to the parliament. We've heard nothing further about in a while about when that will happen. Let's see. I'm sure Mrs. Prasad-Visesa is going to speak. You don't hear her often these days, but I'm sure she's going to speak on Saturday to give the feature address. And let's see if we will hear about load up the matic, pull it back, knock it on them, and knock it again. You are in charge now, madam. You have the power to do it. And since we're about, fulfilling promises, because she came on Friday and made a statement about an issue that I spoke about recently with respect to taxing of pensions. But when you need something, you need to say something as a distraction. You run to the parliament and you talk that up. Because ideally, that statement should have come from the Minister of Finance, who is out of the country. But I don't see why the Prime Minister needed to come and make a whole statement in the parliament about that last Friday. But again, we know why, right? Because you needed to say something to distract from another week of pouring gasoline on this issue with CARICOM and her not attending the retreat and Soba's not attending the retreat. And because she didn't attend the retreat, which she was invited to, all of a sudden it has become a corrupt backroom where the other leaders, the other 14 leaders met, or 12 out of the 14 of the 15 because of the 14, because the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda wasn't there, and the Prime Minister of the Bahamas wasn't there because they're both in the midst of election campaigns in their country. So they came to the main meeting where they would have probably gotten the buff from Mrs. Prasad-Visesa, and then they left, right? But I don't think that their proxies would have attended the meeting either. But you don't hear them making a big fuss and accusing CARICOM of corruption, as our Prime Minister is, and all kind of backroom deal. They supported, even though they were absent, because I think just like Sobers, the other two representatives didn't attend the meeting. And but yet still, the leaders of their countries have no problem endorsing Dr. Barnett. Our Prime Minister is the only one who has a problem. But coming back to this issue, you'll get to that just now. So the Commissioner of Police is telling us FULs were sharing like nuts under a previous commissioner, but are not happening under him. And so if you had hopes that you would be getting an FUL, that the requirements would be relaxed to allow you to get an FUL much easier than it previously was, it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. Because as it is now, under the current law, the commissioner is the only person who can sign off on that FUL request. Unless the government comes to Parliament and makes a change. Let us not forget, under the last administration, when they wanted to repose in the Minister of National Security the ability to be able to approve, just gotta see, right, to be able to approve if your FUL had expired and you wanted to get a renewal. The UNC fought tooth and nail. Said, no, not supporting that. We want to give the minister that privilege. Okay, and the last administration said, all right, no problem. We take that out of the legislation. All right, so again, it still remains with the Commissioner of Police, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. Under this administration, cannot be trusted. All right, so it appears that this commissioner doesn't support load up the matic, pull it back, knock it on them, and knock it again. But nevertheless, we have 62 state-owned guns now out on the street. We don't know in whose hands those will end up and how they will be used. But that is 62 guns that the police must now retrieve. So when they boasting all the time about how many guns they've found and how many guns they've taken off the street, you have now 62 out on the street. Right? In the hands of who knows? No idea. So does I'm asking the police station, does it have cameras? Do they have any camera footage of what took place? I don't know. I guess we will hear about that in the coming hours. All right, so that is the developing story, and that is the trending story right now. This officer who has been killed and guns missing from this police station. Right. So we get this here. So a request was made of me to just touch briefly on the announcement that was made by the Prime Minister on Friday in the Parliament with respect to pensions, private pensions, and the statement that in the finance bill that is to come in the media review, I would imagine, it would be made law that persons would no longer pay taxes on pension income that is derived from private pensions, deferred annuities, approved pension plans. Of course, the fully done took that and run with it. Yeah, I think, you see, promise made, promise kept, promise delivered. But how many people really are going to benefit from that? Because as you know, if your pension income is not in excess of $7,500 a month, that does not that you don't really benefit from that. And again, it is for, based on what the Prime Minister said, private pensions, approved pension plans, deferred annuities, the ones that you purchase from insurance companies. Well, basically, yes, under the law, only the government and insurance companies are authorized to pay pensions, right? So so the Prime Minister quoted a figure of some 39,000 people or so. And Mr. Imbert would have gotten up after she delivered her statement to ask, well, so what about public servants? What about the public sector? Their pensions are not exempt from these taxes. And the Prime Minister got up and about Satagi Bridge and talked about promise made, promise kept, and she did not answer the question. Because the promise, when it was made on the election during the election campaign, gave the impression that pensioners across the board would not have to pay taxes on their pension income. Now, when you have a deferred annuity approved pension plan, at maturity, when you go to the insurance company, they will send you a letter, usually like about 6 months before the plan officially matures, to let you know this is what you have in your accumulation. These are your options. You could take the full pension based on the total accumulation, and this is what it would be monthly for the rest of your life. Or you could take the option of, this is your total accumulation. You could take 25%, a 25% lump sum tax-free, and the difference based on the reduced amount, the 75%, this is what your monthly pension will be for the rest of your life. Now, if it is that the figure really is negligible, they may give you the option to, you could do vesting where you can take a lump sum, a full lump sum, and you dispense with the plan, because the pension that this amount that you have, what your total accumulation is, really doesn't make sense. Like the pension coming up to $100 and something a month, that don't make sense, right? So if your total accumulation $60,000, $70,000, so we giving you this option, right? You could minus 25% of that, and you just tax the difference, and you take your lump sum and you walk away. Now, I can tell you, based on my 17 years in the financial services sector, I have hardly ever seen anybody get a pension in excess of $7,500. Hardly ever seen persons getting a monthly pension in excess of $5,000 from a deferred annuity. Right? Now, what happens is that when your annuity matures, you're required to do a TD1 so that the insurance company can ascertain or capture your total income at that point in time to determine whether or not there is a tax liability. So if you're collecting NIS 3,000 or how much ever you getting from NIS, you have 3,000 plus increments, the lucky people, and perhaps you're collecting a pension from somewhere else, and with whatever you are going to receive from this insurance company is going to take you over the $7,500 threshold, then the company knows that they need to deduct tax at source, okay, and remit, and then you could file a tax return and whatever if there is money to get back. So really, this measure, based on what the Prime Minister said, is to benefit those persons. But for the public servant who might be the retired teacher or whatever it is, or whatever, you're a retired police officer, whatever it is, and you're collecting a pension from the government, that was not spoken to, right? So Mr. Imbert inquired about that, and of course the Prime Minister gave some foolish, nebulous answer that did not address the question that was put to her. We're not surprised. And again, I see where MP Imbert would have asked the question again, and he put it out on X as well. He says, the PM announced today that private pensions will now be tax-free. She didn't admit that most such pensions are less than $7,500 a month, so they are already tax-free, as are NIS pensions, or that the UNC previously promised that public sector pensions would be tax-free as well. So it seems that they have gone back on that promise of public sector pensions being tax-free. The other question that presents itself, which the Prime Minister didn't address, and maybe Minister Tanko will address it when he speaks in the mid-year review and he speaks to this issue, persons are asking the question, well, since what currently obtains is that because you don't pay taxes because you're entitled to a tax refund on your contributions, your premiums, you're required to pay taxes on the income. Since now the income is non-taxable, are we still entitled to a refund or tax relief on your premiums? Which is a valid question, because across the board, that is how it's normally done. Not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in other jurisdictions as well. If you don't pay taxes on your premiums, you pay tax on the income. If you don't pay tax on the income, all right, then you're supposed to pay taxes on your premiums. So there are people, and the incentive to encourage people to save for their own retirement by purchasing these deferred annuities, really, the main incentive is the tax rebate that you get. So you are allowed to contribute by law right now. You could get a refund on up to contributions of $60,000 or $5,000 a month, meaning whatever you contribute to your plan on a monthly basis, up to $60,000 for the year or $5,000 a month, because those premiums are being paid with after-tax dollars, you will get a refund of whatever tax would have accrued to that premium. So if you're paying $1,000 a month, $12,000 for the year, you're entitled to a tax refund of $3,000, 25% of the $12,000 that you're contributing to the plan, because you had this plan, you should not have paid taxes on those premiums. So you get that back. If you are able to pay $5,000 a month to the max of $60,000 a year, of course, 25% of the $60,000, you're going to get back. You're entitled to a refund of $15,000. Right? That would have accrued to those premiums. That is, of course, assuming, and what people need to understand, you must have paid a certain amount in taxes. So if your tax liability is less than, so if you don't pay taxes and you are contributing to this plan, you're not entitled to any refund because you paid no tax. A refund means you're getting a refund on your taxes. But if you are earning $7,500 a month, so you pay no taxes, but your financial circumstances such that you could afford to contribute $500 a month or $1,000 a month to a pension plan, there is no refund for you because you would have paid no taxes. All right? So people are asking where I am entitled now to a refund, since I'm not going to be paying taxes on the income. Am I still entitled to my refund on my premium? So these are questions that Mr. Tanku needs to answer, and I will, if he doesn't state it in the media review, then I will ask him the question. All right? So people are asking, people want to know, curious. But see, the Prime Minister figures she could just come and make these statements on front page and the fully done, they clap and as if this is something so great. It could be for some people. Right. But we will see how that unfolds. Right? People are asking if the Prime Minister hasn't spoken on the shooting as yet. No, she hasn't, and I would not be surprised if she doesn't. So I came across this clip from the Prime Minister of Suriname, right, who was basically critical of our Prime Minister for the position that she has taken with respect to the reappointment of Dr. Barnett. Just take a listen.
I'm trying to remove Carla Barnett. Well, it is unfortunate that that Trinidad has taken such a public position on trying to remove Carla Barnett. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago chose not to attend the conference of the heads, where only heads meet. And when she did not go, we gave the opportunity, the chairman, Prime Minister Drew from Trinidad, and St. Kitts and Nevis, from St. Kitts and Nevis, made an attempt to invite the foreign minister to represent, but he said that he could not go because he got seasick. It was like a 5-minute boat ride. They chose not to attend. And so today we're going to have a meeting to discuss that, and I'm hoping that we can find an amicable solution to this matter. When it is on...
So that would have been Friday before, all right, as the Prime Minister of Suriname there. And he supports Dr. Barnett, and he's saying, well, you know, Trinidad and Tobago, it's unfortunate what has been taking place, but we're going to have a meeting. The virtual meeting that they would have had 2 Fridays ago, which our Prime Minister again chose to absent herself from, and then making a certain man Kuchu Bacchanal, accusing CARICOM of making corrupt backroom decisions. So essentially, she's calling her CARICOM colleagues, the other 14 of them, corrupt. Right. There's your Prime Minister. She went to the people and everything, buffed them up, dropped mic, exit stage left, came back home to Trinidad with no real reason. Up to now, the country's that. What's the real reason? Why did you not attend? There was nothing pressing in Trinidad taking place. She doesn't care to give you all an answer. It is what it is, and she will continue to throw gasoline on the fire that she created by absenting herself. Yeah. And more, Trinidad and Tobago is being treated as a pariah, so to speak. We have regional publications that are posting articles critical of our prime minister. It's interesting, when Keith Rowley was prime minister, the UNC used to accuse him and the PNM of embarrassing Trinidad and Tobago. Where's the embarrassment today? They don't see this as an embarrassment. No. The prime minister doing the right thing. Okay, if you all say so. Right. So let me get this other article in today's newspaper. Now I see someone asking me about the relocation of the domestic. Jamaica and St. Kitts support our PM. Where you get that from? Who said that? Supports our PM with what? With what? Last I checked, Jamaica and St. Kitts support Dr. Carla Barnett and her reappointment. So unless they've changed their position, I don't know where you get that from. Okay, I can read an article for you from the Jamaica Gleaner that is very critical of your prime minister. So come again. All right. Let me see. But they all support. Are they really delusional? No. Send me the article. Right? Quote for me the article where the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, who your Prime Minister has been chastising and deriding, right, for the longest while, and the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Only on nonsense. Let me see. That's such a big talk from them. Nonsense. Right. Let me get this here. So another article in today's newspaper, right? So when UNC wins, everybody wins. Okay. The article is entitled "Despair and Joblessness Haunt Laventille, Port of Spain." Just days before the UNC government marks 1 year in office, the Sunday Express visited Laventille and Gonzales, Port of Spain, to find out how life has been over the past year. Not to mention, the PNM stronghold areas are currently represented by MPs Keith Scotland and Stuart Young. The scene was one of desolation and loss of hope. When UNC wins, everybody wins. Okay. Speaking about the biggest challenges in the community, jumping ahead here, Hector identified unemployment and crime as working hand in hand. She said, if they do not have any means of providing for their families, they will resort to other means. She blamed the lack of opportunities and the stigmatization of Laventille for the ill effects, saying once you are coming from the area, you are stigmatized already, so you will not get the first preference to anything unless you do it yourself. So let me come down here. Bring jobs. Across Gonzales, Port of Spain, as well, a few people were observed outside, but one resident there described it as customary. According to that resident, the only time neighbors saw each other was when they were going to work or coming home, and she said people usually stuck to themselves and lived inside. However, she noted that in specific locations, youths can be seen congregating, and one area identified was at the community center in Upper Quarry, Gonzales. Let me get this here. I live on a pension, and I have lived, and I used to live from before. Lewis stated, emphasizing that from her observation, the youths were being denied an opportunity to live with some manner of respect and dignity. Things broke down because of the youths not doing anything. The area is just dead. We have nothing going on around here. Port of Spain on the whole is like a non-entity to the government. Lewis stated, while imploring the government to come into the Gonzales community and bring employment activities. Come in here. We have a community center here. Come in, invite the youths and register the youths to do something, Lewis said, stressing employment was important for any community to strive. She explained that CPEP was a major form of employment in the community, and since its closure, the options were either for the youths to go in town and look for a job or stay home and be idle. She argued that others had no choice but to live off of their grandparents' pensions or wait until someone like her offers them a job to clean their yard or assist with chores around the house. She lamented that this was no way for young people to live. Her son-in-law, Wayne Lewis, 63, identified himself as Tobagonian and was present during the interview, chimed in and admitted he often saw community development through the lens of politics. He too argued the problem was exacerbated when the present government took office. According to him, despite all the promises Kamla Persad-Bissessar had made while she was in opposition and during the election campaign, her administration had no ideas on how to improve the lives of the citizenry. A lot of people were expecting more from them because of what they said to fool the people for the votes, Wayne stated, adding that he believed people were now beginning to appreciate the economic viewpoint of the former PNM administration. However, Wayne said while he was glad the PNM lost the last general election, as all now the whole country would have still been bawling and blaming PNM, Rowley. Now they get to see nothing has changed, but it has only gotten worse. Wayne said he could fend for himself and get the little things he needed, but he was worried for the youths who were not employable. Get this here. All right. It's all right. Yeah. Right. According to Wayne, the government had no right to shut down the CPEP program, added it would have been more reasonable to change the contractors. According to him, the irony in the whole situation was that in the Gonzales community, it was many of the former CPEP workers who were running around singing, "Yellow is the code, yellow is the code," who were the first workers the government had singled out for retrenchment. Concerning the water issues, Ali goes on to say that, right? So, in the same communities that Mrs. Persad-Bissessar loves to talk about, PNM constituencies are the most amount of crime, most amount of poverty, worst infrastructure, lowest opportunities for businesses, and so on, they have abandoned. Here the guy there said, CPEP workers in these communities were the ones jumping around, yellow is the code, when Philip Alexander was running around with Jason X, all across these areas, right, and looking for votes. Who win? Did they win? No winning taking place there. But then I listened to the Minister of the People and Social Development on Friday during her contribution to the parole bill, talking about crime is born out of poverty that is ignored. And crime is born out of trauma that is left untreated. What about the crime that is born out of opportunities that the government of which you are a part took away from these people? You know what crime is also born out of? A lack of jobs. That when these people had jobs, as of this time last year, they were still employed. Now, 1 year later, they're unemployed. And I see where this pilot program that the government had, listen to how these people nasty. They had a pilot program, which you all know about, called the Program for the Upkeep of Public Spaces, which was basically a former CPEP. They hired a couple hundred workers, 221 workers for this pilot project that ran from December to February, right? Took forever to pay the people. I don't know if they finished paying off all of the fortnights for that pilot program. Then they came with a 1-month program, an extension of that for Carnival, to clean up the place and so on. Both programs have come to an end. Some of these workers had a reasonable expectation that they were going to get rehired, that in the next phase. Because from what I'm told, is that some of the foremen for this pilot project was telling some of these workers, yeah, well, we're keeping all that, don't worry. When next phase come, we're bringing you all back. So you're just taking 2 weeks off and then you're coming back and so on. Now, I am seeing where the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government put out an advertisement a couple of days ago advertising these very same positions for men and for laborers and so on, and are stating that only persons who apply through Employee TT or who are registered with Employee TT would qualify for these positions. So now my phone ringing off the hook because the two persons whose names I would have submitted, which is all we were afforded, 2 names, each of the PNM MPs. So that's 26 out of the next 221. So, right. See how much they got. But anyway, we were afforded 2 names. So these gentlemen who were told by their foremen, yeah, just 2 weeks and don't worry, you're coming back. Now they are seeing and they are being told, well, It's persons who would have applied with this employee TT. And the portal opens tonight at midnight, and then it closes at 11:59 on the 21st. Okay, so you have basically 48 hours in which to get your name inside it. You have tens of thousands of persons who will be applying. What do you think going to happen when this portal opens at midnight tonight? You're going to have problems because the amount of people who just waiting to apply, right? You see what will happen. So when it shut down for a few hours, and then they're saying, even though you apply, there is no guarantees, only those persons who are shortlisted will be contacted. So after giving assurances to these workers who are part of the pilot project, who spend their money to buy uniform and spend their money to buy tools and had a reasonable expectation that in the next round, the next go round, that they would get through, nothing. So fingers crossed, and they're hoping that they get through. And if they don't get through, well, pressure, right? Nothing concrete. We have media review coming up. We wait to see what they're going to come with. But we know how this administration operates, right? Keeping the fingers crossed and hoping for a windfall of money come next year through all of the gas projects. And then they'll probably just come and shell out some money and say, right, come with this program, that program, handout, and so on. And then all will be forgiven. All the people who are suffering for the last year will just come and say, well, yeah, we know they didn't have money and now they get money. And so now they could. And all is forgiven. Not so? Yeah, let bygones be bygones. You don't mind the fact that you couldn't pay your bills for the last how many months. Don't mind the fact that you got evicted because you lost your job thanks to this administration. That's okay. Let bygones be bygones, right? But this is how they play with people's lives. Take away your job. Forestry, CPEP, URP, all of these things. Take it away. I couldn't care about you because every month, the ministers of government, the people who you all voted for, who were there, and those of you who didn't vote and caused them to be there, every month they get in their 2 salaries on time in their bank account. They don't even have to look. They know it's just there. They're just getting notification, salary reach. Pling! Right. When they pull up, ministerial salary, parliamentary salary. So they're good. Whatever standing orders they have, their bill's going to be paid. These people biting their fingernails to the nub every day. They don't know where money coming from for meals, where money coming from to send their children to school. They don't know. So they just living day by day by the grace of God. Ministers don't have that problem. Right? Them good. All right. But anyway, when UNC wins. But I see now several of these government ministers walking around in the UNC jerseys, say they walk in the constituency. To me, that makes no sense. When I walk my constituency, I do not wear PNM paraphernalia. I don't even wear red. Because I understand that if I am working in the capacity as Member of Parliament for Malabar Mausika, I am going to encounter people who do not support the PNM. But yet still, I am the MP. So I am not going to wear a PNM jersey or to wear red. And even the people who work with me, I let them know we are wearing neutral colors. Okay, because we are working in the capacity of Member of Parliament, which is supposed to be a neutral position. They don't understand that. So I see Daulat walking around San Fernando in his bright yellow UNC shirt. I see Padarat in his UNC jersey. So clearly they couldn't care less if you're not PNM. Well, don't bother to come out. We're not here to talk to you all. Okay, we're only looking for the UNC supporters that who put us in office. You all PNM, or didn't vote for us, so we just all they had now just you want to peep, pull your curtain and peep and go back inside. We don't care to talk to you. Well, basically what they say, right? But when just go on the Facebook pages of the PNM MPs and you will see that when they walk their constituencies, they're not wearing PNM colors and they're not wearing no balize. So everybody could feel comfortable if you don't support the PNM, but you see in the MP and you have an issue and you want to come outside. But if I am offended by UNC, I live in a UNC constituency and I see you coming out in your UNC, just I'm not coming to talk to you. I don't want to greet you. You have no respect and no regard for me. But they could do what they want because they're in government, right? So it is what it is. Ah, boy, never a dull moment with these people. So, of course, the big story during the course of last week was this HDC contracts, $3.4 billion in housing contracts issued to 11 companies. The PNM raised a fuss about it, all right, and we indicated our intention to write to the OPR, the Office of the Procurement Regulator, for an investigation into that, because from what I understand is that this was not advertised by the HDC. So questions are, of course, being asked. How did these companies know about this? So let me get this here. And when we look at some of these companies, so let's see if I get this here. What's going on here? What is this? Right. So, okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, I guess. All right, just now let me get this here. My usual go-to. I don't know what's going on with all that. Right. So MP Stuart Young would have spoken to the issue at the PNM's press conference last week, Tuesday. I'm trying to find this here. Snow. Just give me 1 second. I foresee so many things that I try to save. So among these companies, one of them in particular got a contract, or is supposed to be awarded a contract for just over $1 billion. And we saw some others, 400 million, 200 million, 600 million, and the like. People are asking questions with respect to that. And we told you all, how did the UNC fund its election campaign? All the tens of millions of dollars that was spent. We've established before that they outspent the PNM by millions of dollars. This is a party that doesn't have a home. They're celebrating 37 years as a party next week and still don't have a home, but now talk is starting. Talk is in the air about building a headquarters somewhere in Cuba or somewhere in Central, right? All of a sudden, all the time they're in opposition for 10 years, they couldn't build, but now they're in government, 1 year into government, and right. Where the money coming from, we don't know. Right? But they're concerned about Balize House and how the PNM built Balize House. But anyway, so $3.4 billion in HDC contracts, and people have a right to be concerned. And I will remind you all again of the need for concern. What took place under them between 2010 and 2015 with respect to housing, matters that are still unresolved. I've read this before, and I think it's appropriate to go through it again. Guardian article dated the 13th of October 2023, entitled Housing Ministry Probes $800 million in ghost houses, houses that cannot be found. The Housing Ministry is investigating issues from 2011 to 2015 concerning ghost houses costing $789 million, which taxpayers paid for, and for which the physical structures cannot be found. A probe is also underway into a missing $180.5 million on the repayment of a loan. Housing Minister Camille Robinson-Reggie spoke on the issues during Thursday's 2024 budget debate in Parliament. She said the issues were cited by KPMG, the auditors of the Housing Development Corporation, in a 2013 audit report. And again, I remind, for the benefit of the fully dunce, it is not that this audit was conducted in 2013 when the People's Partnership was there. The HDC's financials were behind by years, and it was under the PNM administration 2023-2024 that they would have retained the services of KPMG to bring all of these financials up to date, right? So as they were going through, as at that point in time when the 2023-2024 budget was read, they had just completed the 2013 audit financials in 2023, right? 10 years after the fact. And that is when, in 2023, it was discovered this $800 or $789 million in housing that was supposedly built, that when the auditors went to look for it, they said, all right, let's go to one of these developments and see what the house looked like. Is it a good house? And they went and where the house? It's no house, you know. All right. Okay, let's go and visit another one of the sites where these houses were supposed to be built. Pull up, vroom, vroom, right? Where the house? Not one. They couldn't find not one. Because, you had to take inventory. And that is what they are saying here. We went to do our sampling and we couldn't find any of the houses, but $789 million was spent. Housing Minister Camille Robinson-Regis spoke on the issues during Thursday's 2024 budget debate in Parliament. She said the issues were cited by KPMG, the auditors of the HGC, in the 2013 audit report. Robinson-Regis said one of the bugbears of the state enterprises has been the inability to complete or submit audits, and the HGC is no exception. She said the auditors have only just concluded several years of audits because in many instances we got qualified audits because things were not found that were claimed and money that was said to be existing was not existing, and so we had a number of qualified audits. What was even more alarming was the inability of the auditors to verify the existence of housing units allegedly constructed to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars during the period 2011 to 2015. Robinson-Regis quoted from KPMG's 2013 audit report. The corporation has not prepared a comprehensive inventory of its housing units available for sale. There is an unanalyzed sum of approximately $789 million representing the cost of housing units that could not be attributed to identifiable physical structures. The auditors further stated we were also unable to obtain underlying documentary support for a sample of the construction costs. Consequently, we are unable to perform audit tests to ascertain the accuracy and existence of the reporting inventory. Cannot confirm the existence of these houses because where we went, none existed. We're not seeing any documentation or anything that speaks to the cost of the houses, nothing. This was Camille raised this in the budget debate. Who was sitting opposite? Rudal Munilal, who was the Minister of Housing at the time. He is not a man known to remain quiet when such statements are made, and if he feels that he has been wrongly accused, he said nothing, absolutely nothing, and to date has said nothing. Jerlyn John, who was at the time the chairman of the HGC, said nothing, offered no excuse whatsoever with respect to an explanation for this missing $789 million in housing. And so they come now, 1 year later, drop this on all here, $3.4 billion in housing contracts. Where are these houses going to be built? Where is the advertisement? What was the procurement process for selecting these 11 contractors? So I see the UNC busy because when Stuart would have had his press conference and he would have mentioned that some of these contractors, alleged contractors, only became registered, that these companies only came into existence, a year ago or so. All them mouthpieces, quick, busy to go to the company registry to pull up and see what year these companies came into existence. And here them, well, the latest one that was registered was in 2020 and PNM again and PNM. Okay, well, please, since you all went to such lengths, you should have gone on. Don't stop there to see the incorporation date. Go down a couple pages further to tell us what was the stated purpose of these businesses, right? What does it say? Did you come across any of these incorporation documents, these annual returns stating that the purpose of this business was housing construction? I asked one of them that who wrote a whole long diatribe, right? And provided screenshots of showing the incorporation dates of all these companies. And I said, okay, help us out now. We waited. Nothing. And this is something that came to the fore back in 2021 when PDP won the election in Tobago. And all of a sudden, we saw a number of Trinidad contractors heading up to Tobago to pave roads after being awarded contracts for paving roads. And when you looked at the names of a lot of these companies, roofing companies, We had companies that were involved in providing things like windows and so on. We were seeing hardwares and the like, but none of them had any track record in paving roads. But they were successful in getting contracts to pave roads. And there was an allegation that there was one particular company that between 2010 to 2015 was big in paving roads, had all the equipment and everything, but they were apparently blacklisted under the last administration and they weren't getting any work. So the allegation was that this particular company was using some of these smaller companies as fronts to get them to go and bid for contracts, and then they get through. When they get through, this big company would provide them with all of the equipment and the workers and everything to carry out the job, and then whatever arrangements they had for payment, compensation, and so on would then take place. And so the question is now being asked again, is this part two? So we went from, you were registered as for instance, a roofing company. That's your core business. Never pave a road in your life, but you get a contract to pave a road. And now you're registered as a hardware, but you get a contract to build a house or to build houses. Who really? That's what persons say. You get the contract, you bid whatever, and then you go and you find a subcontractor who has experience in building houses and you give him the work. And you take your portion of money, you do nothing. And then the subcontractor who could do it for less and so on, he happy to get work because he doesn't have the reach that you have. And he building the houses and he making whatever little pittance because he's just glad. And you, who are the front, getting the big money. And questions are being asked. Is there any involvement of any government ministers, any kickback? The Minister of Housing is notably silent. While the 1%, the counterfeit 1%er, the little Syrian that couldn't, out there yapping, oh yes, he is the mouthpiece for the ministry, trying to defend all how, right? His boss, who is really the one who should be speaking, saying nothing. Feroz Khan, who is really, people are saying is really the Minister of Housing, right? The chairman of HTC, he has said nothing. The other one, the bald-headed lout, the waste-of-time rumcock, well, I haven't visited his page in a while, so I don't know if he said anything or he's trying to deflect or whatever. He probably jumped on Camille's case because I saw where the media attempted to question him outside Parliament on the issue, asking for a response to what Camille had said, and his only response was, well, I don't answer to the media because you all are very biased and so on. And Camille tell her to go and buy some more wigs. Let me see if I am. Let me see if I save that one. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I have that. And these are the responses that you're getting from government ministers. The media is asking them to give account, right? Or to be accountable for your money. And these are the responses that they're given. Let me see. Right.
Media.
Why?
Huh?
Senator Gade, a quick question, please, sir.
Good afternoon. I just talk to Trinidad media.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Because you all don't deserve to be spoken to.
Right.
You're very biased. But you're not you personally, but in general.
Understood. Just one thing that's now on our radar right now that we're following, right? I've noticed something that you might be willing to respond to yesterday. Former Housing Minister.
Damn, that lady, tell her to don't buy some more wigs.
Senator Gade, a quick question, please,
Good
sir.
afternoon. I just talk to Trinidad media.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Because you all don't deserve to be spoken to.
Right.
You're very biased. But you're not you personally, but in general.
Understood. Just one thing that's now on our radar right now that we're following, right? I've noticed something that you might be willing to respond to yesterday. Former Housing Minister.
Damn, that lady, tell her to don't buy some more wigs.
That is the response of your minister in the Ministry of Housing. He doesn't talk to the local media because they are very biased and they don't deserve to be spoken to. And but all this is Rowley buffing up the media and Rowley thing and feel the media is the children. But that's acceptable to the supporters of the UNC, right? Tell Camille to go and buy some more wigs. Serious matter, serious questions being asked. So we now know that the OPR, the Office of the Procurement Regulator, has now put a halt on that, those houses. All right, pending further investigation into the procurement process, and then we will see where it goes from there. Okay, but the UNC not interested in that. as I see where they sent their trolls here to ask me a certain nonsense. Bachelor has entered the comment section asking, was a crime committed? PNM opposition Senator General John Bates, while sitting as a committee member whose duty was to scrutinize Terrence Singh, was making changes to witness statement. And what I will say to that, read today's newspaper now. Read today's newspaper. All right? And since you know, I'll tell us which standing order did Senator John Bates breach. Please tell us that. Because she also asked that question, from what I understand. That question was also asked at the committee. And no response has been forthcoming as yet. All right? So, but anybody who has been viewing that particular committee and the interrogation of this matter, all right, would have seen a certain pattern developing. If you've been following, we know that have the now comes, right, who now decide to jump on the bandwagon because of this development. They weren't interested in it before. But all the time when the committee hearings on this matter has been going on, those of us who have been taking it in and following would have seen a certain pattern taking place, a certain line of questioning of the witnesses taking place, right? And certain lines of questioning attempting to lead witnesses to say certain things and to make certain claims against certain former officials, right? Anybody who have been, you all know what I talk. Those of us who have been looking at it, you all would know what I'm talking about. But you could go back on the Parliament channel and pull it up and see the way certain witnesses are being questioned as if they're in a courtroom. And the line of, or the tone of questioning, to my mind, borders on badgering of the witnesses. Right? You could see the discomfort on the faces of some witnesses in terms of how they are being addressed and what they are being led to say. So it's basically, well, so, and so, and so, and so. And based on this, right? Some people are saying, well, look, I wasn't there. I just came in at such and such time, and this is what I met and so on. But they are being led down a particular path to say certain things, to accuse certain former officials of having engaged in certain activities. But I would leave that there, right? Because Mr. Singh will have his opportunity to come and say his piece, as well as the chief medical officer, right? He too, well, I don't know if he's still the chief medical officer. He too will have his opportunity to come and see his piece, all right? And my understanding is that Senator John Bates has been removed from that committee, and the political leader is currently out of the country. And I suppose when she returns to the country, she will address that matter from a more fulsome perspective. All right. So if it is that there was any breach committed, then the PNM will address it accordingly. This is not like the UNC, where you have ministers who are before the court on $1 million bail and still being allowed to preside over ministries, still sitting in the parliament as if, it's no big deal. No big deal. That's okay. We have ministers who are before the court on civil matters accused of things like racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, bid rigging. And yet still we have them sitting in senior cabinet positions, again, serving as overlords of certain high-profile ministries and making decisions and contracts being issued and so on. And the same people who will come here to ask me questions about General John Bates have nothing to say about that. They are comfortable with these people sitting as cabinet ministers. Ministers who are supposed to be under police investigation for their involvement in human trafficking and prostitution, right? Sitting in the cabinet. These trolls will come here and they will have nothing to say on that. No issue. Doesn't bother them, right? Innocent until proven guilty and due process. They want to come here with that. But coming to ask me to comment on matters, but you all are hypocrites. That's what you are, right? A bunch of hypocrites. Because if it was PNM ministers had been accused of that, we would have been hearing about that constantly for the last 5 years, and depending on how long it was. You all made a big issue about Daryl Smith. I know $150,000 and all this thing about sexual harassment and all of that. You had plenty to say about that. But you had persons who stood accused before the election, and they were still selected to be candidates. They were screened and selected to be candidates. That would have never happened in the PNM. Right? Those 3 ministers, well, I should say 4, because there's one who has been under police investigation since 2020, accused of a number of things. Trying to hide money in mommy bank account and mommy insurance policy and all of these different things. Again, senior cabinet ministers. It's interesting. It's not parliamentary secretaries and junior ministers. All of these men were appointed senior cabinet ministers. They are the heads of these ministries. And we're supposed to believe this is this government and the party to which this government belongs. They're all about transparency and honesty in governance. No talk about that. No one come here and address those issues. And this is why the political system in this country is the way that it is and will continue to be the way that it is. That's why it would be so. All right? But I can just tell you, those 4 men could have never passed a screening committee in the PNM. Because from the time that question came up, as a matter of fact, they wouldn't even make it in front of a screening committee. Because no party group would have dared and no constituency executive would have been so bold as to recommend these people to come before the screening committee. That would be crazy. Dr. Rowley would have raked you over the coals for that. Don't even bring that, don't even bother to bring them here. They must not see, they must just drive past Balize house. But that's okay. In the house of the rising sun, anything goes. Yeah, let's come through, you pay $2,000. And people who might have had some sort of integrity, where are they today? In the wilderness. And the people with the biggest of question marks over their heads, where are they? Where are they? No, they love to, let me see if I get this, right?
This is the scene outside the San Fernando Municipal Police Station at Kings Wharf, Lady Hills Avenue.
The cries of the relatives of this police officer who was killed. Right? Okay. Under a state of emergency. Still waiting to hear from your Prime Minister. Dr. Rowley would have dispatched a statement a long time. Long time. Your Prime Minister, well, short time for that. The Minister of Homeland Security sit down with the Commissioner of Police, and of course we will leave no stone unturned. The usual rhetoric, man. No stone will be left unturned. You touch one, you touch all. And really? How many days now we're waiting for the investigation into the killing of Joshua Samaru and the injury of his girlfriend, Kamala wife? The police were able to complete the investigation, the preliminary investigation into the killing of businessman Stephen Ghani, right? And the woman who would have committed the act is now back home, as we understand. Going on, for 3 months now, they're still investigating. You have video footage. We have no video footage with these people, but we were able to, complete preliminary investigations, and as opposed to, we're still waiting. And all the commissioner telling all, hold strain. That seems to be the mantra. Same thing the government telling all, hold strain. Are we holding strain? What going on? So we saw developing last week as well. I think, that's it couldn't have gotten a more ideal example. For all the people who love to talk about the refinery and the refinery and the refinery. We saw in Guyana, where last week for a couple of days, there was a shortage of fuel. Guyana has oil. And I'm saying that based on UNC logic, right? When Guyana have oil, plenty oil. What's the problem? So all who say, oh, Trinidad and Tobago this and refinery that and so on. Guyana put out an RFP about 2 years ago for the construction of a refinery to process about 30,000 barrels of oil per day, right? Purely for domestic use. Despite the fact that they have oil, and they could build an even bigger refinery and provide fuel for the entire region. The government said we don't want no involvement in that. We will provide the land and we will provide the oil stock at reasonable prices to whoever the concessionaires who builds the refinery. But we don't want any involvement, no part in that. We're not taking any investment in that refinery. We want it to be strictly private sector. All right? So the question was asked in the Parliament on Friday of the Prime Minister by Churchill, do we have sufficient fuel, such that we would not experience a similar situation as Guyana would have experienced last week? And again, the Prime Minister come with some nebulous answer. Well, we talked to Parry and Parry say, yeah, we have enough fuel, and that's it. So let's go with that. Parry says so and so is so. And we import the fuel, of course, which in my mind makes sense. We don't refine the fuel here anymore. So a lot of the costs that you would incur with respect to that process, we don't have. So as a lot of countries are doing now, they import the fuel, right? And we would normally order months in advance. But because of this war with Israel and the US and Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, I understand that it was reopened the day before and then it closed back yesterday because, right? So we're just playing seesaw here, up and down, yeah. So which is threatening global fuel supplies, all right? So we wait to see how that is going to play off. Prime Minister has given an assurance. She just, no details. She just said, yeah, we have enough fuel. Next question. Parry says so, is so. We special. We special. Okay. Because don't forget, we don't only provide fuel to Trinidad and Tobago. We also, and I keep making this point, Parry still provides fuel to some of the other Caribbean countries that Petrotrin Refinery was providing. 2. NP owns a chain of gas stations in Dominica, and I don't know if they have in other Caribbean islands as well, but I could speak to Dominica having visited there and seen the NP gas stations in Dominica. So they have to provide fuel for there as well, right? And these other areas, which is taking place. But the Prime Minister says, nothing to worry about, so don't be too concerned. If she says so, it's so. All right, we're going with that. Let me see here. So the light one is saying the RFP showed that an oil refinery would cost a few billion USD, and that idea was thwarted. Since then, it seems that way because we've heard nothing. The last I had heard about that was that they had awarded the that Dominican Republic had been identified to build the refinery in Guyana, and we've heard nothing else since. When the president of Guyana came here the other day, a couple of Fridays ago, the same day that the Prime Minister was supposed to meet with the rest of CARICOM virtually, and she didn't. And some mention was made, and I think it was misinterpreted by the media. Also, the Guyanese are saying that the comments made by their president was mistaken with respect to using the Petrotrin refinery to refine oil. Right? So we will see how that goes. Of course, the other developing story has to do with what took place in the cemetery yesterday, where 2 men were seen digging a hole to bury bodies, some 50-some bodies. I think they said it was 50 bodies of babies and 4 adults and the like, or 56 bodies or so, right? Which was very disturbing. And so questions are being asked with respect to these bodies. Now, what is the explanation given so far is that these are unclaimed bodies from the various hospitals that, as you would know, when persons die in the hospital and there are no family members to come and claim the body, it would stay in the mortuary for a period of time. the hospital would put out an advertisement in the newspaper with a list of names of persons who were passed and they're trying to reach next of kin to come and claim the bodies. And if you don't claim within a certain period of time, then the state would undertake to dispose of these bodies, right? So I'm guessing that the process is that once the 7-day period from the advertisement expires, then whichever funeral home the hospital is contracted to will then come and pick up the bodies and dispose of them. So what we are being told now is, so it begs the question, is this the first time this has happened? Or is this a practice, and it's just that on this occasion, the persons were caught? Because based on the preliminary story, is that the men were in the process of throwing the bodies into the hole when, or they were digging the hole when a neighbor, someone who lives close by to the cemetery, saw what was taking place, and he came to inquire as to who the deceased was, the hole that they were digging, because, usually in these areas, these cemeteries, the persons who would normally be buried in these remote cemeteries in these parts of the country, people would know, right? So I guess the guy probably knew, well, nobody in the area died that he was aware of. So he came to inquire and then would have seen what was taking place. And yeah. Of course, the speculation mill in Trinidad and Tobago, how it operates. So yeah, I'm saying, well, I hear people saying stuff like, well, I wonder if any of these bodies, there's people who they were supposed to cremate, and then, how the funeral goes, they will just wheel the coffin in the back and they close the door so you don't actually see when they put the coffin in the furnace. So they're probably taking people's body out and the conspiracy theorists take the family, pay for the coffin, and then they take the people out of the coffin and dispose of their bodies. Now, there's no need to do that. I could tell you that a very popular practice right now, people rent coffins, especially, they rent coffins where the method of interment is cremation. So you can do that. You go, they offer you the opportunity, you choose this really, really nice coffin to give the impression that you spend a lot of money. Some people do that. And then when the coffin is wheeled to the back and they close the door, there's a tray that is in the coffin that the body is in, and the bottom part of the coffin can be removed, and they just pull the tray out and they just put the tray into the furnace. And so you could do that. Even if they wanted to, there's an assumption. There's no need to dispose of people's bodies in that way. So that investigation is of course ongoing, but it is unfortunate that is how some people are disposed of, right? When you don't have family. I think I would have mentioned to you all before that I almost had a similar experience when my brother died back in 2019 from kidney failure, right? And the day he died, I visited him on that day, and the hospital had discharged him. And when I got there, and I saw his condition, he was in no condition to be discharged. And so I told him, I said, we need to talk to the doctor, because it doesn't make sense you go home in this condition, because he was living by himself in Vancouver. And I said, if you're supposed to be on a ward. And we were sitting, he was on a wheelchair. We were sitting in the waiting area. He was waiting for the final papers, the discharge papers. And it so happens that Joe Newell Williams was in the waiting room as well, waiting to visit someone. And she saw what was taking place, and she overheard the conversation between my brother and myself. And, she inquired, what was his situation? And I told her, and she said, no, but he's not in any condition to be discharged. And because he was very weak, and you could tell, and so on. And so she went and she found a doctor, and doctor came, and we had a conversation with him, and he said, well, no, this guy is not in any condition to be discharged. We will ward him, right? So when I left, he was still there. They had given assurances that he would be warded and so on. I said, well, when they put you on a ward, you'll just call me and let me know where you are, so I'll know where to come and visit. And I didn't hear from him for the rest of the day. Okay, so okay, maybe he rested. I tried calling him the following morning, and his phone kept going to voicemail. And normally, when his phone goes to voicemail, if the phone is off or he didn't get to charge it or whatever, once it's charged, he would call. So I said, okay. A day, 2 days after, no response. So I went to the hospital to visit. All right. And of course, I didn't know where to go because I didn't know where they sent him, where they warded him. So I went to the information desk to inquire. And they're telling me there is nobody by that name warded in the hospital. I said, but I don't understand. I left him here a couple of days ago, and I was told by the doctor that they were going to ward him. So, and he was a patient in the hospital up until the day that I last saw him. So I don't understand. You're telling me that there is no record of him here. They said, well, he was probably discharged. I said, okay. So I went to his home and knocked on the door. Nobody there. Spoke to a couple of the neighbors. They said, well, no, we haven't seen him since he went to the hospital 2-3 weeks ago. Go back to the hospital again to inquire. And again, you're telling me you have no record. How could you have even if you have no record of him being warded again, why is there no record of him at all in the hospital? Which I could not understand, because he was a patient there for at least 3 weeks. So I went back and forth like that for almost 2 weeks. Nobody could tell me where my brother is. So finally went back another day and they said, well, here what? Now I know that he was in the dialysis clinic. He used to do dialysis 3 times a week. So I said, well, okay, let me go to the dialysis clinic and inquire as to when was the last time he came for dialysis. And I went there and the nurse says to me, who are you to the patient? I said, I am his brother. And I've been trying to locate him for the last 2 weeks without success. And they're telling me that he's not a patient in the hospital here. He's not at home and nobody has seen him for almost 2 weeks. She says, hold on. She goes to get a head nurse and the nurse comes back and she says, follow me. And we go into this room and she comes with a file and she says, Mr. Robin, your brother died 2 weeks ago. I said, what? He died 2 weeks ago? And I said, why am I not being informed of this? I said, because I've been here back and forth for the last 2 weeks trying to locate my brother. And you're telling me he's not a patient here and nobody was able to tell me this is only because I came to the dialysis clinic to find out when last he came for dialysis that I'm now being told this. So she says, well, on the night, the same day that I left him there is when he died. And the nurse or the nurses or whoever was on shift at the time that he died, they claimed they made one attempt to call and didn't get through. And it was around the time that they were going on shift change. So that when the other shift came in, they assumed that the previous shift had gotten through and had informed the family that he had died, which didn't happen. So one call they made, right? And so I said, well, okay, where is he now? Where is his body? They said, well, go down to the mortuary and see if he's there. So I go down to the mortuary and they said, well, I gave them the name. And the woman checks and she says, all right, come with me. So they take me to the back where they have the freezers or whatever. And she pulls a drawer and she opens the body bag and she says, is that your brother? And I said, yes. She said, well, you come at a good time because he was on the list to go out for his body to be disposed of. I saw no advertisement in the newspaper. We were not informed, right? But you are telling me that I came at a good time because he was next on the list of persons for his body to be disposed of. Right? So sometimes you may think that people are being abandoned, but this is what happens in our health sector. Craziness. So had I not had the presence of mind to go to the dialysis clinic, right, to inquire, it is possible that if a couple more days had passed, that they would have disposed of my brother's body, unknown to the family. So these are the things that happen in these hospitals. So they just treat people like, no effort. There was no consultation between the ward where he died and the mortuary to inquire, well, we have a body here. Has the family been informed of his passing? What happened? Anybody gets on? One call. And that's it. You send the body to the mortuary and then further to that, when the nurse comes, when before I was sent down to the mortuary, the nurse comes and she hands me a garbage bag with my brother's stuff, his clothes and what other belongings that he had. Right? Now, I know when my brother went to the hospital, he went with a really nice bag, which my sister purchased for him. Right? He was also using a cane, which my mother had used to use after she got her stroke and so on. So when she comes, actually, no, she didn't give me his belongings were in this garbage bag in the corner of the room that she took me in. And she said, well, that's his belongings there. So I opened the bag to see what is there, right? His phone was taken. Right? His wallet was empty. Now, I had given him, before I left him, I gave him $500, right? I said, well, if it is they insist that they're going to discharge or whatever, it is, and you have to get a taxi, at least you could call somebody if I can't come back to pick you up and they could take you home. So I gave him the money. Well, actually, I gave him the money before the doctor came and to indicate that they weren't going to discharge him and so on. And I left him with the money. I said, just in case, if anything, you have that money. So if on the day that you're discharged, I can't pick you up, you have money. So he had that $500. Wallet empty, phone missing, charger missing, the cane missing, his watch missing, all of these things missing. All it had in the bag was just his empty wallet with his ID card, his few pieces of clothes, and what was left of his medication and his hospital documentation and prescription. So I said to the nurse, well, there are things missing here because his wallet is empty. I left him with money. His phone is missing and all of that, and telling me, well, fill out a report. Itemize all of the things that were missing. So maybe if they didn't steal his phone and it was charged, when I was calling it, somebody could answer the phone and say, well, the owner of the phone has passed, and we would not have had to go through that whole bacchanal. Right? But the person who stole it didn't have the presence of mind to think, well, hey, the family going to call? I guess not. And clearly they were convinced, satisfied that they would not have been identified. But you would think it should be, because when you realize that he's deceased, whoever is the orderlies who would have come up to take his body to the mortuary should have been very easy to find out, well, who were the orderlies who were assigned to that ward on that night? Who were the orderlies that were working on that night? Or the morgue attendants or whatever. So you can identify who stole this stuff. It's like, I say, look, you know what? I'm not even going through that. He's deceased. We've gotten the body in time. We will do what it is we need to do. Those things can be replaced. Crazy. Meanwhile, I see persons posting and I see they claim when the PNM was in power, the health sector is the worst. The PNM mashed up the health sector. You can't even get medication, and you can't get this and you can't get that. And when you go to the hospital, you're waiting hours to get a bed to be warded. Has that situation improved? All the people who were complaining between 2015 to 2025 about all these issues in the health sector, have they improved? Because I saw a picture that someone posted, right, of a slip that they got for an appointment date. Let me see if I have it saved here. Craziness. Let's see if I get it here. Where is it? Right. Here's what the person says. So I passed by the Sangre Grande Hospital this morning to see if they made a mistake on my appointment date. I asked the clerk at the front desk for my appointment date. He gave me this piece of paper, and the picture of the slip is there. I said that date is a mistake because we are in 2026 and the appointment is for 2031. I said that's 5 years. He said it's no mistake. The clinic has a backlog of patients. Thanks to the system we live in, I have to wait 5 years with a bacteria eating away the lining of my stomach, which can lead to ulcers or even cancer, H. pylori. Well done, ERHA Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for all your love and support. Much appreciated. Will be enjoying my life until 2031 if I am still around. And the patient's name is there. Appointment date, the 23rd of June, 2031. Time, 8 a.m., clinic, gastro. 5 years and 2 months. This person has to wait to get an appointment for the gastro clinic. Meanwhile, as they said here, the lining of their stomach is being eaten away by this. Let me see if I get it here, right? The lining of my stomach is being eaten away, right, with this bacteria. Someone is saying here, it had one where an older woman with hypertension and diabetes was waiting 48 hours in accident and emergency. Correct. There's another one we saw the other day with the 91-year-old who died because she had been waiting for a bed for so long. The situation has not improved. But they opened the Couva Children's Hospital, right? That was supposed to reduce stress on the system. Is that hospital really opened? But look at it, 5 years. And it behoves me to understand how the hell you could give a person an appointment for 2031 and in your mind think that is appropriate. How, as a human being, forget whatever your job spec is, as a human being, how can you find it appropriate that you could give somebody an appointment for 2031? It was the same thing they did with my brother too. He was supposed to do some tests and give him an appointment for a whole year down the road, right? And the subsequent cause of death that they would have identified had to do, now the appointment that he was given for 1 year hence, right, was for a test that had to do with his heart and how the dialysis that he was doing was impacting his heart. 1 year. And it's interesting that he was dead within a couple months of getting that appointment, right? But and that's the thing. The cause of death identified was heart related. But you all give the man a whole year, right? A whole year. So I don't understand. But here we are. This is in 2019. We're in 2026. And we're still giving people appointments 5 years down the road. Well, I guess whoever issued that appointment is of the view that the person's situation is not so serious, that they could wait 5 years, that the ailment is not going to worsen in 5 years. Or this is just a way of saying, here what? Find the money and go to the private doctor. Find the money, go to the private doctor. And they will and sort yourself out. Right? And these are the daily problems that citizens face in the public health sector. UNC promised they will fix this and we will fix and we will fix. The problem is you have a lot of doctors who are working in the public health sector who are also working in the private sector and are using strategies such as these to get people to come to the private sector and spend thousands and thousands of dollars for things that could be done in the hospital. And again, I could speak to this because I had these experiences with my sister, my younger sister. For those of you who've been following me for a while would recall that situation. My younger sister who was diabetic, diagnosed since she was 17 years old, right, as a diabetic. And when she suffered gastroparesis, where her stomach muscles were paralyzed and it was preventing her, she couldn't eat anything, she couldn't drink anything. She went to 3 different private hospitals and spent at least a week in each of them, spent thousands of dollars, thank God she could have afforded it. And nobody could give her a diagnosis, right? They just kept giving her Gravol and so on, and via intravenously. And as soon as the Gravol would have given her some ease and she was able to eat and drink some stuff, they discharge her. And then a couple of days later, after she comes home, problem reoccurs, she goes to the next hospital, and it's the same thing. And everybody's saying, well, they don't know what else to do. And the last private hospital that she was in was West Shore Medical, right? And then when she went there, and this doctor came and he said, well, We could do a, I forget what they call it, the endoscopy, right? And we put the camera down inside your stomach to see what's going on, but there's no guarantee that that is going to give us a definitive answer as to what the problem is. And that is going to cost you $34,000 just for the procedure alone, right? And she asked me and my older sister, well, what do you all think? Should I do it? And we spoke to the doctor and he said, well, there's no guarantees. I can't tell you that it will solve the problem, or that it would even give us the answers that we're looking for. And since he could give us no guarantees, we tell her it don't make sense, you waste that money, right? So don't do it. And she didn't do it, right? She started to feel a little better, came back home, and then the problem came back again. And we said, look, we just take her to Port of Spain General because we've been to top private hospitals and nobody has been able to give her a proper diagnosis. Took her to Port of Spain General Hospital. She was there for almost 3 months. But in the first month that she was there, the very same doctor who was working at West Shore also works at Port of Spain General Hospital. And he came to see her. And guess what? They were able to do the procedure at Port of Spain General at no cost to her. $0.00. And they were able to find the problem, that it was gastroparesis, and they had to do some sort of surgery with respect to her stomach and realign some stuff. And anyway, long story short, the procedure worked, and right. But the same doctor couldn't tell her, well, here what? This procedure is available in the Port of Spain General Hospital for free. No, do it here and pay $34,000 just for the procedure alone, right? Doctor fees and whatever. We're talking about the fees to use the operating theater, and then they had to pay for the tools and the anesthetist and all these different things, which are a different cost. From the time you mentioned to these places that you have health insurance, well, boy, crap, or smoke your pipe. There's all kind of tests they want to run and everything. And they know full well that some of these things are available in the public health sector and wouldn't refer you there. It's only when you end up there. And then, but there's the same doctor we spoke to in West Shore. I tell you, Shirley and Henry saying that happened to my son. Yeah, apparently this is a regular occurrence. So oftentimes when it is that people not getting the right care in the public health sector, it's not because the public hospitals are necessarily bad. No. It's that when you have doctors working there, some of them working as consultants, right? At the end of the day, it's their pocket that they're seen about. And if you tell, well, nothing we could do for you here, but this machine down and that machine down, but you could get it done in the private sector, and I could refer you to whoever, and you just go ahead and find the money. You have health insurance? Okay, good, let's use that. But that only covering 80% of the cost up to a maximum, so you still have to be out of pocket for the difference. And the service is available in the public health sector. I tell you. Shirley Henry saying I paid for biopsy in Mount Hope. Muy Bendita is saying the PSA health plan is taking over 2 years to get money back. Yeah, and I spoke to that issue, Muy Bendita. I spoke to that issue in the parliament with this Unimed health plan. And when we were doing the budget last year in October, and we were in the Standing Finance Committee as we were going through the allocations for each ministry and so on. And I kept seeing allocations, hundreds of thousands of dollars to this plan. And I asked several ministers about this very plan. And is it sensible to continue pumping money into this plan when it was reported that this plan is insolvent to the tune of, I think it was some $80-something million up until the time when the PNM had left office, right? And the way that the plan was negotiated between the PSA, from what I understand, and this company, right, is really the union and so on not supposed to be arranging for these payments or whatever it is. And people are paying their money, and yet still claims are taking up to 2 years to settle. So much so that people have now gone out to purchase their own private health plans from the various insurance companies, right? And whenever, if ever, the claim come true with this Unimed plan, Well, they say thank God. Helen Prescott is saying submitted a claim in 2023 with the PSA to date, no refund in 2026. And I asked Leroy Batista about that during the budget debate. Yeah, he said, well, they got with the plan. But remember, he was PSA president for a time. So he ought to have intimate knowledge about that plan and the challenges that public servants are going through to get their claims with these plans. And nothing, right? I am not aware. I don't even know if the arrears, because I know the PNM, at the time that they would have demitted office, Minister Imbert, and they were in some sort of, well, there was intention for the government to fund the shortfall, right? The deficit. I don't know what happened after that, if this government took up that, if they did it. But the fact that I'm seeing people here stating that they're still having problems to get claims back some 2 and 3 years later suggests that that has not been done and that the situation remains the same. Wilbos is saying MRI machine always not working for people to go to a private hospital to pay thousands for an MRI here. Claire's asking, can you look for Dr. Winston Welch's report, read the health sector and doctor? I would look for that. So see, Shailen is saying they had my child there not doing anything. He is in the Ministry of Works. Yeah, I mean, MRUI5WD is saying, I'm presently waiting about 8 months for a simple venous ultrasound. And I don't understand. And this is where the focus ought to be. But we find money for everything else. Right? We could have found $16 million for Flavor Village for Carnival, right? And we paid over 500 artists. Great, wonderful, okay. And we had things for that, for people to go to a retreat in Tobago and spend $500,000 for a couple of days for 12 people to enjoy themselves. And meanwhile, the health sector, right? But according to the minister, I have no crisis. We have no crisis in the health sector. I attended an AGM recently, and 2 of the speakers, I think I mentioned this to you before, 2 of the speakers, the feature speakers, were doctors who are cancer doctors, right? They deal with that. And they were saying, one of the doctors was saying, he's stationed, I think, at the San Fernando General Hospital, that they don't have the needles to do the biopsies. So they have to be telling people, well, under the table to tell people, well, bring your own needles. Go out and buy your own needles and come. 1 year later, they knew all the problems that existed in the health sector before. Here they are. What's happening? Right? Nothing. Very little improvement. Shirley is saying money for celebration this week. Slimy Show is saying we can't give you a few million and tell them to develop our own scanner machines. Research and development. I agree with you. Yeah. That's a big thing. And we have people in UE, I'm sure, who have the aptitude to be able to do this. Or are we investing money in training persons to be able to service these machines locally, instead of we buying the machines from abroad and then it comes here, and every time it's shut down, we have to bring in a technician from outside, right? From the USA or Canada or the UK or wherever it is we bought it from, or Europe. They had to come here to fix it. And then when it break down again, same thing. We had to fly in a technician, train the people here. And you see, that's one of the reasons why they are unable to open the Cooper Children's Hospital fully, because they have a set of equipment there and you don't have the people, you don't have the staff trained to use it. And if you do have staff who are trained to use it, chances are that they are already working in another hospital. So in order for them to come to this hospital, they're going to have to leave that hospital. So either way you take it, problems, right? Because you're going to leave one hospital unmanned. So until you train the staff to be able to come and use these machines, and you have people to be able to service it, you're spinning top in mud, and it's the same thing going to happen. All the complaint that they pay them, but the nursing association told them you don't have sufficient nurses, we don't have sufficient staff to take up the positions in this hospital to open it fully. But they didn't listen. 29 supersedes saying, I tell you that health sector with some of them doctors is really something else. No, it really is. And as long as we have persons who are going into the medical profession simply to make money as opposed to saving lives, that's where the challenge is going to be. All right? Because when it's dollars before people, you're always going to have that. I mean, I know a doctor in the private sector, private hospital. I wouldn't say which one, right? But I go there every month because I have a client there that I visit ever so often. And sometimes when I see the doctor's schedule for the day, he might be doing surgery from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock in the night. And you might see he might have about 8, 9 surgeries doing. And when you look at so you have the list, right? The patient's name, the procedure that they're going to do, and the cost. And as I said, sometimes I would take a peep at the list and I am seeing 7, 8, 9 surgeries for the day, 35,000, 60,000, 55,000. So sometimes in a day, this doctor might make well over $250,000 in surgical fees for the day. So it's a money maker now. Yeah. And I'm saying that's why I always say education is not only for job purposes. Super C saying there was a report that was done by Professor Simangal from UE during the COVID period. What is going on, the recommendations from that report? I have no idea. No idea. Right? But something needs to be done. Because sometimes medical, no disrespect to any medical professional, right? But I can only speak to my personal experiences, and I think I've had too many in the public health sector, right? I told you all about my brother, my sister, and I've also mentioned to you all about when my mother passed away, right? Having suffered a stroke at age 62, and then at age 65, again, because of the stroke causing her to have a sedentary lifestyle, because not being able to walk well, she was just basically, if she's not lying down in bed whole day, then and if she does get up, she would go and sit down on the couch, and it's from the couch, right? She use the bathroom, and then is back to bed, and this is somebody who is usually very active. And of course, because of that sedentary lifestyle, she developed a blood clot that traveled to her lung, and she died from pulmonary embolism, right? The blood clot in her lung. But when it happened on the day, and then we took her to the Arima hospital, and they're working on her, and I am sitting on the area, but the room where they were attending to her, I was sitting on a bench just not too far from there, and waiting to hear some good news or whatever. And I see a nurse comes out from the room where they were supposedly working on my mother, and she says, so another nurse is coming, and she asks for some piece of equipment because wanted to use it on somebody in another room. And the nurse who came out from the room with my mother says, yeah, well, they could take it now because that patient inside there, she feeding. Clearly, she didn't know that that was my mother. How do you think what went through my mind? Hearing you, who's supposed to be working to save my mother's life, is telling your colleague, yeah, well, they could take it now because that patient inside there, she feeding. So it's like, oh, yeah. That makes no sense. She'll be gone shortly, so you might as well help yourself. Public health sector. Yeah, that's what she said. I will never forget that. Never forget that. Those were her words. Yeah, that patient inside there, she feeding, so you could go ahead and take it. So while I sit down there and thinking you're all doing everything that you could to save my mother's life, it's like you done give up already, so go ahead and take it. So I don't know if this particular piece of equipment was supposed to be life-saving or whatever it is, but you just walk out casually because that's not your family. There's no attachment whatsoever. Probably go through this on a daily basis. So another life loss, no biggie. But no regard for the people whose families are waiting, hoping, fingers crossed, everything crossed, hoping that you could revive the person. Yeah, exactly. No etiquette whatsoever. You see. So there was something else I wanted to touch on as well. Right. So I'm seeing this story with respect to the nurse who passed. It continues to develop. The latest story by the Express is cold-blooded killers took 62 guns, and they're saying here that the 9mm submachine gun style weapon used primarily in law enforcement and security operations, designed for low recoil and rapid target engagement. Cause for concern. So here we are under a state of emergency, and we have 62 guns registered to the TTPS, well, to the police service, the Municipal Police Service. So it's basically government owned, now outside here, and could be used. 4,000 rounds of ammunition could be used for criminal activity. I don't think they're going to take the guns just because they like it and they want target practice, or clearly there is an intent to distribute these guns for the purpose of committing crimes. Right? 62. I don't think you're going to give all to one person. So whether it is these guns are going to be rented out for the purpose of committing crimes, whether it's just to scare people to hand over your personal effects, or if it is going to actually be used to take people's lives. Well, we are already under state of emergency. So let's see what the next step is going to be. Right? What's the next step? Where do we go from here? I tell you, never a dull moment in sweet TNT. Yeah, boy. See something here. So let me get this here. Right. 1 second. Yes, and for the PNM listeners among us, don't forget the PNM Sports and Family Day will be taking place on the 17th or the 19th of 17th of May at Mandela Park. All right, so come out in your numbers. We have a 5K taking place 6 o'clock at 6 a.m. on the morning of the 17th, called the Big Red Run, and the medal looks pretty nice. So I think it's the registration cost is $150. So please come out and support. They're supposed to have all 13 MPs, all 19, the 6 in the Senate and the 13 in the lower house are being encouraged to come out and are being encouraged to come out and participate in the 5K. So come out and take a walk or a run with your favorite MP. I'm saying me, whoever is your favorite of the 13, come out and take a little run with them. Let me see if I get this here. What's the time there? All I see is UNC people, UNC people calling for curfew. The robbery that took place at Superfarm in West Moorings a couple of days ago, right? Where you see in the video, for those of you who have seen it on Facebook, the woman who was walking out to her car and two young ladies walk out from Superfarm. They jump into their car, and then two men run up to the lady whose car was parked next to the car that the two young ladies went into, and there's an altercation between the woman and them, push her down or whatever it is, and they took her handbag, which, as I understand, based on reports, had a gun in it. The lady was a licensed firearm. She had a licensed firearm, a 38, and that was taken along with other valuables. And the police, in conducting their investigations, have so far held 2 women. And wouldn't you know it, that these women turn out to be UNC activists, UNC TikTok. Well, I wouldn't even call them influencers, right? But there are TikTok personalities who are well known and supporters of the United National Congress. But they love to say every time crime, PNM, that's Eric Williams' children, Eric Williams' grandchildren, and Rowley children. That's how they like to refer to them. But it was Kamla children who were held for this crime. Not Rowley children, not Manning children, not Eric Williams. Kamla. They don't support the PNM, they don't support Rowley, and they don't support anything PNM. All UNC. I didn't even know the individuals until I saw several posts of people asking, but wait now, there's not so-and-so from TikTok who is talk for the UNC? And sure enough, yes. I guess they didn't win because winners don't rob people. All right? Winners don't need to go and hold up people in car park and take their money and their valuables. All these people who they promised all kind of things. When UNC win, everybody wins. Don't worry. Yellow is the code. That was their mantra. The government gets into office and all of a sudden they forget all you. Nothing. Not even a job. The little job that you had under the PNM and CPEP, URP, they take that from you too. Right? So you are a net loser. You didn't win. You got nothing additional, and what you had, they take from you and left you in the lurch. Now that you have to resort to what? To setting up people. So is it that now they're casing these places and they're looking to see who, we see, I must say, these pull up, right? We go, we pretend as if we're shopping, and then we see who looking like they have money, and you call, yeah, well, this woman coming out here now. Deal with that. Deal with that. Is that what is taking place? But if it was a PNM post, oh Lord, wouldn't I hear the end of that? Bastards. Eric.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Well, I don't know if it's a cake call because I'm home. I'm listening to you. I'm on phone now, so I said I didn't put the cake call, but I said I'm just calling by that.
Go right ahead.
Right. Well, good afternoon to the astute member of Parliament for W. O'Mara, the Honorable
Malaba Osika.
I mean, what?
You said W. O'Mara.
Malaba Osika. I stand corrected, sir. Right. Good afternoon to everybody else on the live and so forth. Now, you see the situation that took place this morning regarding the untimely death of this WP.
Mm-hmm.
It have a lot of questions to be answered with respect to this. Now, we all know across how much stations across Trinidad they have a room in the station called the Armory. Right? The Armory is where all arms and ammunition and exhibits and all these things are lodged for safekeeping and also being issued to officers who perform duties. Now, it kind of really I'm a bit concerned with respect to this whole thing because this is 68 firearms gone missing.
62.
Well, I know some they say misinformation I give because some say 68, some say 62, some say 64. Over 60.
Yes.
Right? And I want to believe that this had to have some sort of initiatives behind it, a orchestrated plan or plot or something of the sort to take place with this. Because this is my opinion. I didn't say my opinion. You know, when I do opinion, it was say, nobody say I say. My opinion. People. Right? And to have 62 firearms, police issued firearms missing in a unit or a station or whatever, it's very, very, very concerning because all these firearms have numbers on it. Every single one. So if it's 62 firearms gone missing, you must be able to find them because if they run in a chronological order or consecutive, you must know. Right? So, like I said before again, a lot of questions need to be answered with this situation because this is giving the public now a perception that we try to get the gun, or we try to give the police information, but yet still the said firearms that causing problems in the country is being banished from the station. So we have to make it make sense. You want to fight crime and get the guns off the street, but yet to the other hand, they go on the same. So as I said, I won't touch too much on that. I will wait to hear the outcome. Like, you know, we have a 91 in this country. We just want to sit down and when 9 is after, we don't forget what happened with this whole situation. So we will wait and we will see what will be the outcome of this whole investigation. But I will reserve my comments regarding this situation. Right. Now, that is point one. The next point is, I see the UNC government going to celebrate 1 year next month. Wait, this month then.
Correct.
MP, between me and you, I want to believe, and I think all other thinking citizens who didn't vote for this government want to believe that what is there to celebrate? What is there to celebrate? Are you going to celebrate that over 60,000 people got fired, got terminated? Are you going to celebrate the rampant crime, murder toll, and these things? Because we all know you are trying to suppress or manipulate the numbers of the statistics in the crime. We know that. Because all I want to give the perception that the SOE is functioning and it's working. You see, these people took this SOE, state of emergency, as a puppy show. They take it so much, it becomes like, it just run down. It has no essence or no significance in SOE again in this country. Because when people abuse these powers, it becomes ineffective. Right? SOE is to be based on serious problems or challenges a country may face, whether it's treason, whether it's a coup, like 1990, when we had the coup, we had a SOE. The Black Power movement in 1970, we had a SOE. Right? You come in and using SOE like it's a normal thing to fight crime. So are they going to celebrate what? What are they going to celebrate? That what? Or they get 1 year in office and all they did that. All the fruits that are being there now, all the fruits now that are taking place is on that PNM labor. Everything, all the thinking now, all the talking about is on that PNM. It's just all they're trying to take credit for other people's work. And that's what all they want to celebrate. All they get 3.25 billion in revenue from NGC in 11 months. Really? 11 months versus 10 years? Really? All they're going to do what? Celebrate, fire truck and thing. All these things are already in the pipeline under the PNM. So all they have no real plan. You know what the plan was? When UNC went, everyone, who went in? Who are the people who went in? People south of the Caribbean River went in. UNC areas went in. And they are winning properly because people are still complaining. Like $3.4 billion in contracts for ACC. And yet still always send them a lot of people. This government MP is running this country on apartheid, racialism, and displaced mentality. They want to stigmatize and victimize people on the East-West corridor. And the same people that gave all your vote in 2025. So miss me with that DS with all the celebrating, all they want to celebrate. Look, after 38 years, or even have a headquarters, so what, or they're trying to teach money to one headquarters? I just asking questions. But you say no paying them billion and drug money. Eh? But then again, people, these things have to happen for us to understand why we are where we are. We was there already in 2010. Only go and put them back to finish off where they left off in 2015. Right? But that the government wanted, and they get the government deserve. Because if that murder with that WPW San Fernando was under the PNM, hey! They would have great Dr. Rowley and the PNM and the thing and the, oh God, all of a sudden now, that happened, gave me a soul. All the UNC bots and them on social media, they quiet. You understand? They quiet. I would always say, we just want things to work. Once my party in office, it will function. Other than that, I will cost the other party. But, like I always say, when UNC win, the country suffer. When UNC wins, the country is suffering after 11 months. Well, a year, because a year in office. After 12 months, we still have 48 months to go with these people. So people, it's going to be a bumper ride. But I believe they will not spend more than 5. They will spend 5 years. That is my take. Because every 1 year to do all this. So people, be safe. Let me stay focused. We have to defend the country from these kleptomaniacs. People to run the affairs are only embarrassing the country, both locally, regionally, and internationally. So, people, let me stay focused, and we have a country to get back from these kleptomaniacs that are in office right now. So, Epic,
yes, sir.
As usual, love fun and listening.
Thank you. Jenny. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Dominic.
Hey, Jen.
Good afternoon to all those who are locked on and tuning to practice stubborn thing. The UNC is set to celebrate their 1 year anniversary. Last year, April 28th, they would have won the election convincingly, the general election convincingly. And after that, prior they chose the AG and the Prime Minister, because of those two persons, it constitutes to a government until they fill all the other posts.
Yes.
And by June the 27th, 2025, under the Public Utility Minister, Minister Barry Padarat, 10,500 super workers were fired immediately, along with about 300 contractors. Then after we had the RT workers, and then incrementally contracted workers. Now, when you take 10,500 workers out of a system, and some of them are most vulnerable workers, it's not just 10,500 people alone. They have families. They may have 2-3 children. They may have dependents. And actually, we could look at that 10,500 being about 30,000 people affected, with one of those CPEC workers having family and all that, 10,000 of them unemployed, no money. And the dependents, no money. Reforestation, same thing. We heard a gentleman, he and his wife was working in reforestation, both of them lost their job, and just said he committed suicide. So I'm saying, when the UNC goes to celebrate this 1 year anniversary that they won the election last year, April 28th, and they're going to celebrate April this 28th, what exactly are they going to celebrate? Because the effect of sending home all those workers who usually the underground economy every week, every fortnight, them spending money because they related workers and getting paid every fortnight by the day. So money was circulated. The vendors on the street, a little small susu, a little para, all those things came out of that system. So you can go in and shop and trust a little something till I get paid fortnight. And you know how these things go. They take all them all these society, out of the system, the economic system, and you're going to celebrate it. And they did that in the first month or something of you coming into office. I thought when you win, everybody wins. And the code is yellow. And I love you. Nobody could love you like I love you. That is how you love people, by sending home women. And I am telling you, Dominic, and those who listen, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. But as a enough psychology, I could talk on this. Prostitution is going to increase. Women making shares is going to increase. Incest is going to increase. Rape is going to increase. Domestic violence is going to increase. Petty crime and thieving and shoplifting is going to increase. Because I'm giving you a scenario. A woman who was working and paying, she rented 2-3 train in a house, whatever, lost, she dropped from ticket and her rent to pay. It has a man scrupulous. Landowners. Because tell her when you say you had the money, you had to pass the punky, you had to pass something. Or like your little daughter, or like your little son. So you have to make some argument. And this woman is put in a position now where she has nowhere to go. She gets put on the street. She had no job. She had no food because she must be now, she family members must be in the same position like we. You had to make a decision as hard and as disgusting as it sounds. Some women may make a decision that they pass the punky every month for their rent. It has some little with her husband here working, she going out to look for something, she come back with something. He frustrated. The way you get that some big bacchanal break out, he's feeling guilty because he can't maintain his family, he's feeling less than a man. And he starts to feel when he go beat you up because that's the only way he could show his strength. And the list goes on and on. Children have lost the chance of going to school to study properly because now mommy head hot, daddy head hot, no money for school, we hungry, mommy crying, daddy cussing, they fighting. They can't sleep when the night come. The lights cut. They worry when they go live. All these things have an effect on the children. And that's a generation of children coming out of this wicked and evil act of the UNC government. So I don't understand what they're going to celebrate. And then right after that, the jam, you know what the SOE, that take away the constitutional rights. Right after that, they tell you the independence that Trinidad and Tobago all races have come out and celebrate together. We can't have that. And then after that, we living in trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. What they're going to celebrate? I am saying this particular UNC, under this particular Prime Minister now, based on all the evidence and information of this, so it's not me saying so, it's the most heartless, the most cruel, the most evil, the most dictatorship, the most tyranny, the most anything negative I think about is the UN. But you know what people are saying? Dr. Rani, that they pay tax. See how we suffering. People forget that when the PNM came in 2015, they met a recession after the UNC under the first reincarnation. The PP government met oil prices even higher than Dr. Economic back in the 100 and something US dollars per barrel. They had money. And what happened in 2015? Jawala Ramalan, dear governor, central bank governor, say we in a recession, 3 negative growth, and we in a recession. The PNM win the election later that year and came in and met a 14% increase in salary that was settled between the PSA and the PP government to pay. You know, they didn't tell public oversight, well, we can't pay only because we can't have money. They went and borrow money to make sure they pay public officers. And when they were fighting that to build up this country, it was perfect. But it was working, it was working. The OAS was working because 500 are here going home from military education, or 500 BOAs. And the BOAs coming under the PP government to 2015. They working all this time, they send them home now. So as I was saying, everybody working, cars selling, grocery billing, sets selling, Carnival set 300 and something for the year. Things nice, they said it's suffering. Dr. Ronnie won't give me nothing. And then bam, we hit up on COVID-19, another pandemic, a disease that we have since back in the Spanish influenza, almost 100 and something years ago. And Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, he is saying, I can't pay public officers, I can't pay teachers, I can't pay this. You know what? We were getting paid. And we were home doing nothing. People's shoes that was wearing to work get dry up. People's clothes that was wearing get too small because they spread out. All that happened. You know what's out there? The emergency workers, police, and the doctors and nurses, the whole support staff. On top of that, we had a two-tier system. The only country in the world had a two-tier health system where the ordinary patients in the normal system, healthcare system, and there was one set up to treat with COVID-19. Dr. Rowley and Dr. Partisan and all those medical professionals, all supporting staff are so good that the World Health Organization praised them because without having the vaccine, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley and the medical profession were able to utilize the face mask to help with that, cut down on numbers. All that happened. The whole society had crashed down. Nothing wasn't coming in to sell, nothing going out to sell because no shipping coming, nothing. And we were still getting paid. And 10 people turn around and say, Dr. Rowley, wicked and evil and tyrant. Let me tell you something. When you call things on yourself, Dominic, sometimes it doesn't express it because you call a negative vibe. So all unfortunately, you were saying they suffer him. And Rowley's a dictator. And we go eat grass and all that. Unfortunately, they will understand what it means to be a dictator and a tyrant and what it is to suffer. But I end by saying again, what it is UNC has to celebrate for this year that they have been in office. In my opinion, there's nothing. But of course, we will find something because that is what, in my opinion, liars do. And just as the Trump administration is behaving, it seems as though this administration has wanted hook, line, and sinker. So make have a blessed week ahead, and everybody be safe out there. And again, I give an opinion, and I was asking a question. Based on the things around me, I'm able to make an opinion. Thank you, Mr. Roman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Brian.
Good afternoon to you, Dominic.
Greetings.
Good afternoon to your callers and listeners. Dominic, you have publicized your family issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very disheartening. But we who are listening will just, listen. But when it hits home,
yes,
like it did with me recently, with my son, then you know that when you tell yourself he's a big, strong man, you get weak. It weakens you. And all of the people who have called in and indicated some of their issues as well, some of the trials and tribulations that they have gone through with our health system. Before this government and even with this government, it's painful. And I feel your pain. Maybe I feel it more because I never experienced some things until when my dad died. And when my son recently got into an accident. And I had to spend almost 24 hours in the hospital with him. Hadn't eaten for the day. And hoping and praying that doctors were passing by and it was as though he was just another body in the hospital. But he didn't die.
Mm.
But I have to say a body because it was less another individual. And every doctor I asked a question told me, hold on, I'll call the doctor.
Right.
He's not my patient. Yeah. We were there until 4 a.m. when I got kind of angry because the receptionist was telling me only one person was allowed, that was his wife. And I decided eventually at that hour in the morning. And it was very cold. It was below 0 son was in serious blankets, but his wife brought for him, and she was all cloaked up, and I didn't have anything to, but I felt the coolness. And I even told the doctor that if the accident didn't kill him, he would die from the temperature in here. And they were in there in a room talking, you could hear them talking amongst themselves, whoever was the attendants or doctors or whatever. It was difficult. And then eventually a doctor came out and said, I know we're here since today. Earlier today, I said, yes, we are. Look at the hour. I said, I know you all have to observe him, but nobody's looking at him. Nobody's doing some of the tests that they did. And then some of them they couldn't do because the two machines that they had were down. I said, our big San Fernando General Hospital, I'm calling for waiters. I said, okay. The two machines to do certain tests were down, and they would have had to carry him to point 14 to have the test done. But I don't know what happened, because at one time they were telling me I couldn't get in because his wife was there and so on. And only one visitor at a time. One person at a time. And it was difficult.
Right.
Until 3 o'clock in the morning, when I tell myself I go in there. Because she was in there all cloaked up, freezing to death. And she had the children to carry to school the same morning. Until I eventually started to talk to the doctor. As the doctor passed, I said, hold on, I'll call the doctor. I said, hold on, I'll call the doctor. I said, but doctor, you're the third doctor. Hold on. And eventually a doctor came, and I'll call her name because you see, she was very nice, Dr. Ramgulam. Dr. Ramgulam, I'll call her name because she was polite. She was kind, and she said, I noticed you all here very long time. I said, yes, we are. I said, well, we have to observe him. I said, yeah, but we're observing him since midnight. I say, if any observance, say, well, if anything goes wrong, we bring him back and so on and so on. So we were able, through her, she released him for taking home. But I'm telling you that it was traumatic. It was extremely cold in that traumatic unit. I want to say extremely cold. I mean, I have my home air conditioned. But that air condition at the time was below zero. I told them about it. Because he was in 2 blankets, under 2 blankets. And he was freezing. And I thought that was traumatic. His wife was having a difficult time staying there because she was freezing. And there were people on beds in the corridor in blankets, freezing. And I was just shaking my head. But it just brought back memories to me whenever you speak about your family, and I think about my father and I think about my son recently.
Right.
And I know other people would have called in, would have experienced similar issues. And it's only when you're there and you feel the pain and you're there for over 24 hours that you understand. And there's nothing to eat. There's no cafeteria, there's no nothing, there's no to say you could go and grab a bite, unless you bring something. Because I hadn't eaten for the day. And was into another day. And nobody telling me anything. Everybody asks, putting you onto somebody else. It's difficult. And I feel for you, and I hope that whichever government is in office will fix this. Because it is bad. And you see, we are so corrupt that they don't give a damn about you and your family. They care about how much money they can make. And if they call you once and they call you again, this is why we have this issue with these bodies that they found. didn't give a damn about the relatives of some of these people. And I will bet you I'll bet you a dollar that none of those bodies that they found were Caucasian. I'll bet you. I challenge anybody to come and tell me. Let the news tell us tonight that one or two of the bodies were Caucasian. But you know why? They would find the families of those persons. But you and me, we ain't with nothing. Even though we have our loved ones. And you left information because there was a record. And they call you once and they decide, well, they get whoever, the relative, and that's it. Body bag and wherever, and that's it. Too bad. And nobody knows. How are we going to solve that? How are we going to solve that problem and that issue in this country? Are there any more areas where bodies are lying? Are there any in South? I don't know. Because I can't see them taking bodies quite up. So where is Kamuto?
Yes.
But there had to be bodies in South too. So is the police looking down in South to see people who have not been identified being buried in mass graves in San Fernando or maybe even Chaguana, so wherever? Are they looking or they're just lucky to find this one and that's it? But people are dying every day. People being unidentified. So if you don't keep tabs of your relative or your loved one, and you just decide, well, I can't go today because I'm 14 minutes. Or Jerry's supposed to go for the next week, and after that, I'm supposed to go for the following week. And then when you go, you realize nobody. And you catch in your royal tail to find that person, that loved one. What is your position? And they're getting answers that are not helping you. Because I just said, you were back and forth for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And if you were not being persistent, maybe your case would have been one of those. What I really call to talk about, Dominic, is this. Because you see, they want to celebrate 1 year of performance and so on. But you see, the people of Trinidad and Tobago needs to be aware of what is going on. Because when you're being lied to, there's a lot to talk about, when I talk about the John Bates issue, but I will leave that because that has something developing that I will talk about perhaps maybe on another program. But there are things happening in this country that people need to be aware of. Because you see, Trinidad and Tobago, all those who are listening to this podcast, we are being led down a road whereby we are being lied to and being misled and being told that everything working good. But hear this. Wednesday gone, Kelvin Ramnarine, and everybody should know Kelvin Ramnarine by now. Kelvin Ramnarine was a former energy minister between 2011 and 2015. Took over from Carol T. Prasad Bechan. When she was fired by Kamala Prasad Bisesa for speaking the truth. But Kelvin Ramnarine was on CNC3 on Wednesday morning talking about the state of this country with respect to gas. Not oil, but gas. Because the Honorable Prime Minister indicated that she was sending this high-level diplomatic team to Venezuela. That was about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And up to now, up to today, I don't know if MP Romaine may have more information than me. But as far as I understand, no team has been selected to go to Venezuela to talk to the president, acting president, however you want to put it, about We share, according to the Honorable Prime Minister, well, I don't know what we share is. But I want all you to listen, because you see, we forget that Dr. Rowley told us that 80% of our income is from gas and oil, and it will remain so for number of years to come, because there's no diversification in this country. All we're talking about diversification and talking about it no more. But all you listen to this, because it's important for all you know, because all of you all who used to work CPF again, like it come like you are all again 10 days when there was something clean, as Dominic Romain would have indicated that every so often they bring in a set of people to do a set of cleaning, but not permanent thing, temporary thing, and if only get paid, all you're lucky. So let me continue. On Wednesday morning on CNC3, Kelvin Ramnarine indicated, now our money really comes from the downstream industries where we make ammonia, we manufacture ammonia, we manufacture methanol and urea and so on, which we sell to these international companies that have built their plants in Trinidad, like Proman and Nutrien and Yara and Methanex and so on. These international companies that have built these downstream industries are dependent on natural gas to supply their units, to sell to countries abroad so that we can get Forex and we can make money because we charge them royalties and taxes. But you have to understand where we're going with this. Listen. Kelvin Ramnarine came on Wednesday morning and indicated, because of the lack of natural gas, that Yara, all the plants shut down. But we know about Nutrien because we have spoken about Nutrien at length on MP Romain's program and on other programs. We know they are no longer, they have shut down as well. But guess what? Proman shut down too. Guess what? Methanex, Atlas, and Titan plants are down. Atlas was the biggest plant, and they wanted to run Titan, which was the smaller plant. But that shut down too. And we have been downgraded by Standard & Poor's with our methanol plants in Point Lisa. They are now junk bond status. In other words, people of Trinidad and Tobago listening to this podcast, we are making no money from our downstream industries because they ain't getting no gas. And as Dominic rightly said, when gas starts to come in 2027, 28, they will tell all you forget the past and think about the future and how we go make money now because of what the PNN did. Dr. Rowley and Stuart Young to ensure that we were able to get Atlantic LNG up to maximum throughput and gas into the downstream industries. Well, you must remember when Kamala started talking about what he could do to help the United States with the state of Hormuz to make sure that the tanks can move forward and so on and so on, and what PNM and what the UNC doing. Kamala could talk and say all that dotishness. But you could believe that? That was she talked about it in this last week here, that she's working a get licks with Kevin Ramnaran because he was interviewed on Saturday on the barbershop and he refused to talk. Because he must tell him, hey, shut your mouth, otherwise. Because when John Gill was asking him certain questions, he said, listen, ask your callers and let them answer them questions. He couldn't answer. Things are bad in Trinidad and Tobago. So I don't, according to Sister Jenny and Eric, I don't know what they're coming to tell you that they're going to celebrate, because there's nothing to celebrate in Trinidad and Tobago. Absolutely nothing. We ain't going to talk about the refining because we talk about that ad nauseum. We're going to wait to see what happens with that. You understand? Kevin Ramnaran didn't even talk about the refinery more. All he indicated was that he gave up a report, which up to now, we don't even know what that report says. But somebody spending $50 million US, and we don't know what it is they're going to get fit. Trinidad and Tobago, if only want to sit there and applaud after 1 year and realize that stupidness going on in Trinidad and Tobago, and people are dying left, right, and center. Don't believe me, because I am not a fan of Ian Allen, but I look at this show every single day now, because what he is saying is going on is not even being said on primetime news in the evening when we are looking on. People are dying, there are choppings, there are home invasions, but we're not hearing half of what's going on. So if they want to believe that crime is down according to this commissioner of police, that this going on and that going on, or you go ahead, or you believe. Because you see, a man got shot, and in 4 days, that crime, his wife is out pending further investigations. And that reached the DPP desk. But Joshua Samaru case, after 4 months, cannot reach the DPP desk. And all you know what's going on in this country. So let's continue to believe those people who are going to give all you a wink, a smile, a hug, a handshake, and tell all you everything good. And at the end of the day, when it hit the fan, all you realize, well, wow, we're in trouble, real trouble. And people still out there and hungry. Then all you could know, as Dr. Rowley has always said, we barley grow. Dominic, thank you very much for allowing me this time. There's more to say, because I wanted to talk about Tobago too, but that's another story with this jet ski issue. And what the Prime Minister indicated. But we'll talk about that perhaps another day, because it is very early and I am so sorry about what happened to that young child. It really brought tears to my eye when I looked at that funeral on television. But that's another story with Farley. And we could talk about that perhaps next week. Thank you, Dominic. For
Thank you, sir. All right, and before I go, Brian reminded me, about the government and its supporters loving to take credit for things that the PNM did. And I saw last week where Shell was transporting some equipment for the setup of this pipeline for Manatee. And to see the supporters of this government talking about the PNM couldn't do that and this couldn't happen under the PNM. And I have to wonder if we're living in the twilight zone. I mean, UNC supporters are worse than MAGA supporters. They know Manatee, the delinking of Lauren and Manatee was done under the PNM. The final investment decision was taken in 2024 by Shell to invest in that project. Listening to these supporters, you would swear that everything that has happened in the last 11 months only took place when the UNC came in to office, right? Shell was trying desperately to see if they could have gotten everything in place with respect to the Dragon deal before, early on in the term of up north, right? So that they had hoped, or it appeared, because they were originally gas was originally supposed to start flowing from Dragon in 2027. and Shell was trying to bring it up to 2026. So they were putting everything in place, hoping that maybe by the time the infrastructure in place and everything, and if we could get the gas flowing before a decision was taken, or before up north turned his attention to Venezuela, that everything would have been in place, the gas would have started flowing, and then maybe by the time his vision was turned into that direction, we might have get a blind. And that didn't happen, right? Because his attention to Venezuela happened sooner than was thought, right? And then we saw the cancellation of the OFAC license, the 3-year OFAC license. That one was cancelled. The 6-month Kobo Sweat expired. Your Prime Minister has said nothing in regard to that. Your Minister of Energy has said nothing in regard to that. And where do we go from here with respect to that? So if Trinidad and Tobago has no OFAC license, there was a reason why the government of Trinidad and Tobago was given an OFAC license. Clearly, in order for us to participate in anything Dragon, our government needs to have an OFAC license. Our government's OFAC license expired a few days ago, all right? About 10 days ago, because it was issued on the 9th of October, so we're looking at 6 months, around the 9th, 10th of April. It is expired. So which means our country has no authorization from the United States to engage in any negotiations or anything with respect to Dragon. Shell has an OFAC license. Trinidad and Tobago does not, which is why Shell is in the driver's seat. No, and they could go to Venezuela and they could talk to whoever in Venezuela and they could negotiate wherever they want without any participation from Trinidad and Tobago. Our OFAC license, as far as we know, has not been renewed, it has not been extended, and we have heard nothing from our government to say, well, they are making any efforts whatsoever to do so. By now, Steochong would have been in Washington. Where Munilal? Is he in Washington? Have we heard any indication that he's going to Washington? Well, seeing as how he has not met with anybody from the US, I mean, even except for that one trip that he would have made some time ago. But whenever his leader, she goes to talk to anybody about anything to do with energy, he's never there, right? Which makes absolutely no sense to me, because you are the energy minister. So neither he nor Keza are ever there, ever present in the room when the political leader, the prime minister, is talking anything energy, right? But the supporters made this big thing, oh, they cancel the OPAC license that Young and them get because Maduro and this and that. But yours expired. You have nothing to say. So all kind of distraction that you're all trying to come with. So I see where what's his name? So Slimy Show is asking what OFAC license sanctions were removed from Venezuela. Lord Father. Boy. Slimy Show, oh God, do your research and understand what it is. The sanctions were removed from, you still require the OFAC license, all right? Not because the sanctions were removed simply means that they could just walk into Venezuela and do whatever it is. That is why the Trump administration would have issued OFAC licenses when Mr. Trump, after they removed Maduro, right? And he invited all of the heads of the various energy companies to meet in the White House. And when he sat down and when the head of Exxon told him right now Venezuela is uninvestable, that's when he got up and he went and he looked at the drapes and talked about the gold and pulled the drapes to talk about the ballroom and all of that, and then went back and sat down and people are trying to figure out what the hell just happened there. And then they issued OFAC licenses 49 and 50. So if you go and you do research, OFAC license 49 and OFAC license 50, which was issued just over a month ago, you will understand which OFAC license I am talking about. Okay? So but the OFAC licenses that were issued, 49 and 50, just Google it and you will see what it was about, which is why Shell is now able to, Shell can't just go in, and these companies can't just go in, but they still require some level of permission, because as Mr. Trump wants it to be, he and the US calling the shots in Venezuela. So I'm just saying, sanctions were not removed since then, sir. Sanctions were only recently lifted on Delcy, which is why Delcy was able to take a trip to go to to Grenada. It was only recently announced. Come on now, man. Seriously? Boy. Which is why, so as I was making the point, so that is why Shell is now able to negotiate with Venezuela, and we cannot, apart from persona non grata. So as Brian was saying, I don't know what this delegation, so we hear the Prime Minister just announced that passing. Nothing was said in the Parliament. And yeah, so let me just read this here. Right? Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar and Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal yesterday welcomed the decision by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control to issue general licenses 49 and 50 to BP and Shell, among other international companies, to negotiate and enter into contracts to develop gas fields in Venezuela. The licenses require payments of royalties and Venezuelan taxes to go through the United States-controlled foreign government deposit fund. In a statement yesterday, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago expressed views that this development was an important opportunity to deepen hemispheric energy cooperation. She continued, "We are optimistic about the potential to enhance our role as a responsible energy hub," blah, blah, blah. Right? And this was the date on this was the 14th of February, 2026. 2 months ago. All right? 2 months ago. Just say, not 5 as you are alluding to. It hasn't even been 5 months yet since Maduro was deposed. All right? That took place on the 3rd of January. We're in April. So I don't understand how you could say that happened 5 months ago, and 5 months ago, Maduro was still the president, still sitting in Miraflores. But if you want it again, on February 13, 2026, as part of ongoing series of sanctions easing measures following the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January 2026, the U.S. Department of Treasury's OFAC issued 2 general licenses authorizing certain activities related to operations in Venezuela's oil and gas sector. Authorizing certain activities, right? It goes on to say, as further detailed below, OFAC licenses 49 authorizes U.S. persons to negotiate and to enter into contingent contracts for certain new investments in Venezuela's oil and gas sector, while general license number 50 separately authorizes certain transactions related to specific entities' oil or gas sector operations in Venezuela. These general licenses do not authorize any transactions involving persons located in Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, China, or any entity owned or controlled by or any joint venture with such persons. Similarly, the general licenses do not authorize the unblocking of any property blocked pursuant to the Venezuela sanctions regulations or any transactions involving blocked vessels. Come now, man. Brian.
Dominic, let me explain this to the player listeners. Why it is we need an OFAC license. Because people will be wondering, well, I don't want the government to mislead the people. We need an OFAC license because the negotiations and the money that are exchanged for taxes and royalties and whatever is done in United States dollars. In other words, once you're dealing with United States dollars, you need permission from the United States. I learned that from a very knowledgeable individual in Trinidad. So therefore, you see, that is why you have something called BRICS, trying to get away from the US dollar. Because they recognize the hold that the US dollar has on the world. And that is why Donald Trump is angry. So therefore, once you are dealing with anything pertaining to oil and gas, and especially gas with respect to Venezuela, you need a license from the United States Treasury, which holds on to the subsidiary OFAC. And because we are dealing, you can't pay Venezuela in TT dollars. They can't negotiate in TT dollars. You need to negotiate in United States dollars. And that is why you need a license from the United States of America in order to negotiate and deal with these type of issues. Right? Because I myself was wondering why. And I got to find out that that is the reason. Once you are dealing in United States dollars, they have the say. You have to get permission from the office that is under the Treasury Department Secretary, the OFAC license. That just information are given to the people. So whenever you hear the UNC talking about, oh, you don't need no license again, really? You do. You do need a license. And one more thing. They came and they boasted that they made $3-something billion from NGC. Those are unaudited statements. Not only me or the Honorable Stuart Young spoke about it. Marsha Walker spoke about it. That she's UNC, was. So therefore, don't take what they say that they're going to give out shares, dividends, on shareholders. And give out $1 and all that kind of, going to pay them in US. Ask the question, and you see, this is where I get angry with the journalists. Have they asked the chairman of the board, Mr. Ramdeen, are these audited statements, yes or no? And if not, when are we going to get the audited statements to discern and to realize that have you paid all of your external and internal bills to determine exactly how much money you made, which may be negative? We don't know. But they come in and Kamala Prasad is talking in the parliament that they make over $3 billion, more than in history. But those are unaudited statements that they are making. So please, people, be careful what you hear and take on. Be very, very careful. Because they just throw things there. And there's no evidence, there's no proof that these things are audited. And they are evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Further, General License GL49 authorizes the negotiation and signing of contingent contracts for new oil and gas investments in Venezuela, even if those transactions would otherwise be prohibited by the VSR, but does not authorize the performance of such contracts, which must be made expressly contingent on obtaining separate authorization from OFAC. All right? So the license, in case my friend Slimy doesn't recall, that the license, the OFAC license that we got, all right, in October of last year, specified who were the parties to be involved in these negotiations. It was Trinidad and Tobago, Shell, and on the United States part, unlike what existed with the OFAC licenses that Stuart Young and Keith Rowley and they had secured, there were about 5 other companies mentioned in that OFAC license, right? And Trinidad and Tobago was supposed to have achieved certain milestones because clearly up north wanted to get a piece of Dragon, which the US did not ask for when Biden was there. So when you read that particular license, the one, the Kobo Sweat, what was stipulated in there and what the US was supposed to get and what Trinidad and Tobago was supposed to get. So there were more parties who were going to share in the Dragon Pie under the up north OFAC license as opposed to the Biden OFAC license, right? So for you to say, well, Trinidad and Tobago is not free to negotiate, no, because it means we can't just go and say, well, okay, we're negotiating with Venezuela, when the license that we had before specified that these companies, which were named, supposed to play a part in that too. They had to eat our food too. So Trinidad and Tobago can as well, all right, well, we're going to negotiate directly to Trinidad and Shell and Venezuela. And you see these other people that we were told in October last year supposed to play a part. Well, we're not talking to them. and we excluding them. How does that work? So you telling up north, well, here, well, I know the license you get in October, it's a company A, B, C, and D supposed to share, and they're supposed to participate in the project. But since you lift the sanctions now, we just go in and we excluding all of them, and it's just Trinidad, Shell, and Venezuela, as it was under the Biden OFAC license. Is that how it works? I'm confused. So you're saying Mrs. Posabi-Sessa has the authority to do that? To exclude these other companies? She big in the dance. I didn't know that handshake had such power. So Mr. Trump don't want the piece of dragon that he wanted 6 months ago? When was that discussion had? When did Mrs. Posabi-Sessa meet with Mr. Trump or Mr. What's his name again, Rubio, and say, well, here, what now? We're changing the terms of that OFAC license. Since all left sanctions now, nothing for you. Come on, man, slide. Do your homework now. Anyway, it is already 4:15. Let's see if I get this here. Right. Right. See, ministry, right, together with an task with responsibility to take the necessary steps. So we know that none of these steps that were required for that license were taken, and Trinidad and Tobago, as far as we know, has not received any updates with respect to proceeding with that, right? And we know that Shell is engaging Venezuela based on the OFAC licenses that 49 and 50. That is what they are operating under, right? Because seeing as how what we are being told is that the US still has some control over what the Venezuelan government gets, the amount of money, where the money goes, and all of these different things. So, yeah, the OFAC license would govern, I would imagine, any negotiations that Trinidad and Tobago enters into with the government of Venezuela for US oversight. Okay, unless you are suggesting that the US authorities are no longer interested in something that they were interested in just 6 months ago. And since Mr. Jeremy was very guarded and not wanting to expose the OFAC license, when it up, remember he put it in the Manila folder and say, well, I'm not going to hold it up because the media is very innovative. They will zoom in and get the whole thing and then publish it, and we don't want that. So I just show you all the top here, and that's all I could see. Remember that? So I'm just saying. Right. So folks, we will chat again soon. This man get how she out now. Horace Shockness is saying time to march. We are ready. You know, I hear you, Horace. I agree with you. You see, it's just sometimes when you call the march, a lot of people will say that they mount, and then when the march is called, they don't show up, and then they give you a set of excuse. Well, they had this to do, they had an appointment, they did this. But I mean, I'm there in spirit. They love to say that. They're looking at it on Facebook, in media coverage, and then in the comments, I am there with you all in spirit. Would have loved to have been there, but I couldn't get time off from work, or I had to take my child to the doctor, or the car down, or some kind of thing. So, but don't worry. Soon enough, the marches will be coming. Yeah, I agree with you. But of course, it has to be done within the confines of the law. And as you know, you have to get permission from the Commissioner of Police for these things, especially since we are in a under a state of emergency. And this government would love every and any opportunity that they could get to say that the PNM is trying to incite civil disobedience. Right? because I recall when the Indian Prime Minister had come here, and you all recall that day in Parliament when we came outside, and this was shortly after they had fired the CPAP workers, and some of the CPAP workers had gathered outside City Hall, and we walked out to meet them, and we had taken a decision. We would just walk single file, just around the Parliament, no noise, no bacchanal, no nothing. That was the plan. We're just going to make one lap around, not the Parliament, around Woodford Square. That was the intention, right? And as soon as we started to walk west on Knox Street, peacefully, no noise, you see the police van pull up, and the bus pull up, and they block Knox Street, and the riot police came out in their riot gear and assumed their position, ready to, as I assume, share some licks if we had reached them, right? And not wanting anybody to be injured, and not wanting the government to see that we were causing any unrest. We took the decision, we'll stop right here in front of the Hall of Justice, and we'll hold hands, say a prayer, and people sang a few songs, and then that was that. So Slimy Show is saying he's starting a new party. Slimy Show, I think as you said, you monitor politics 20 hours a day. Right? Which means that unless you only sleep for 4 hours, or you monitor politics while you're asleep, a new party in Trinidad and Tobago will not succeed. We saw it with the party that came closest was the Congress of the People, and we saw how that went. You're able to convince some people where you could get persons who are respected to join your party. And that's why people gravitated towards the Congress of the People, because you have people like Winston Buchanan and Gillian Lucky, Carolyn Sipasad Beechan at that time, and Anand Logan when he was still well respected, and the likes. And people gravitated towards that because they were saying, right, you have good people here, man. These are people who we know who have a track record of performance, and they have integrity. But they didn't win a single seat. And then after that, they capitulated. Right? The same thing in the ILP when they contested the local election in 2013 and got 104,000 votes. And then after that, what happened? They weren't able to sustain the momentum, and people went back. UNC people went back when they realized that Jack, because they thought the supporters of the UNC who had gravitated to the ILP thought that after that, Jack would have the ILP and the UNC would just merge and all would be well. And when they realized that that wasn't happening and Jack waged war on the UNC supporters just went back home. I don't know if I could say the same for the PNM supporters, whether some of them might have gone back home and some of them would have, But anyway, it says I have 4 years to teach the people about communism. Well, good luck with that. Since a large portion of people in this country, whenever they hear the term communism, they think dictatorship. As I had to tell one person recently, I think you need to go and pull up your dictionary and look for the word communism and see what it means. Because that's why I realized plenty of people think the word communism means dictatorship. Right? And they don't understand what that means. But I don't think you will get buy-in, because it is clear that UNC supporters are a different breed. Very, very different. And even if you start a new party and you're able to get some of them to cross over, it's only a matter of time before they go back home. Okay? Because if Kamla Prasad Bisesa on election night 2015 could have left them stranded and abandoned at Rienzi Complex after she realized that she had lost the election, she didn't care to go and give a concession speech. She didn't care to go and comfort her supporters who had gathered there. Instead, she jumped in a car and went home. Right? And, well, whatever she did when she went home. And that was that. And they forgave her. She lost general election 2020, and they still forgave her and kept faith with her. So as I said, UNC supporters are a different breed altogether. So good luck in trying to convince them. All right? As for PNM supporters, what I would tell you, the true PNM supporters, they will not abandon the party to go elsewhere, but what they will simply do is not support, period. Right? They will just withhold their support from the PNM and say, all right, PNM need to take a rest. And we saw that in the last election. They just sat out the vote rather than vote for somebody else. So, let me see. So Horace is asking, I have a question for you, Dominic, to ask on my behalf, how much it costs for the PM to fly a private jet back home after one day. So we can inquire how much the Prime Minister has spent so far on travels since becoming Prime Minister. Ayana Noel is saying, I am PNM win or loss. Sammy Show is saying, I'm trying to revive the old NER crew. The old NER crew still exists? I think most of them went across who didn't go to the COP, went to the UNC. People like Carson Charles, who has his own problems with that piece of land that he sell the people, and years they're waiting for it to be developed, and only has such excuses. Jennifer Ashby Okoli saying PNM was and is not afraid of the US. True. Natasha Scott is saying, unlike PNM supporters, I voted for PNM regardless of good, bad, or indifferent. Jimmy, I can't say. What I would say is, he's saying, I mean the NAR when they were in charge, the last honest government Trinidad had. Okay, if you say so. Let's see. And as I met a gentleman last night at the Camille's event, and he was telling me it's something I support. And he was saying the one thing the PNM supporters could learn from UNC is they will disagree with their party, they will have fallouts and so on, but they understand it's better to have your party in government and fix the problems than to cause them to be voted out of office and then you have to try and fix the problem in opposition. So you had to try and fix the problem in opposition, one, and then two, try to get them back into office when they could have just had one problem, right? Which is to get them to fix the problem while they're in office. So the UNC is in office now. They've done things to upset some of their supporters. They've made some promises which they've not yet fulfilled. And while some of these promises may seem to be on the back burner, if need be that they need to fulfill those promises in the future to try and pull back some support, they will do it. So this stunt the Prime Minister pulled on Friday with respect to the pension and the no taxes on pension and so on. And it's interesting, it comes on the heels of last week, some woman going to some granny who went to the White House to deliver McDonald's for Donald Trump, and it had to do with celebrating or recognizing the no tax on tips. And I keep saying we are being governed by Fox News. So whatever happens up north, we try to find ways to mimic it here. So it is no coincidence that the Prime Minister chose that time to make that announcement rather than wait for Tanku to come back and make it. And yeah, so I think that I know for a fact there are lots of, I've met some PNM people who didn't go to the polls and are saying, well, this is why they didn't, and they regret not having done so. But I keep making the point, we lost the election by 15,080 votes. 15,080 votes. Even though 98,000 people who voted for us in 2020 didn't vote for us last year. All we hear was 15,080, right? And so, of course, the challenge that we have, remember, we depended on those 2 Tobago seats. And so while the focus now is on Trinidad, we still have the issue of those 2 Tobago seats. The UNC, right now, they counting 19. Right? 19. You need 21 to form the government. And they are saying, well, they could solidly depend on 19. I'd say 18. It depends. But the reality is that since 1995, come forward, the UNC has never gotten less than 15 seats? Never. As unpopular as they were. With all the allegations and claims of corruption, they have never gotten less than 15 seats. From 95, come forward. And we went from 17, 17, 2. And if memory serves me correctly, in the year 2000, they would have gotten 19, the PNM got 16, and I think there was one from Tobago, right? And then we had the 1818, and then yeah, but I don't think they've ever gotten less than 15 seats. We had 12 in 2010, and now we are 13. And I've said it before, and it is worth repeating, that when you look at the UNC votes, even in their worst of times, the amount of votes that they get in their strongholds, you can truly say those are stronghold seats. Truly say that. Even when the PNM wins, when we look at the margin by which we win in the seats that we hold, still, in Siparia, UNC Kamala will get 16,000 plus votes, and the PNM will get 2,000 and something. I don't think there is, save and except maybe for the Port of Spain seats, Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. Even I was surprised at the amount of votes that we got in the two seats, Laventille East, Mova, and Laventille West. 5,000 something and 6,000 something. It's crazy. But UNC seats, Munilal 16,000 and change, Kamla 16,000 and change. When you look at Padarat in Princestown when he was there, or kind of 16 and 15,000 votes. The PNM constituency that always gets the most votes is Trincity Maloney, previously Aruka Maloney, under Camille Robinson Regis. And she got less than 10,000 votes in 2025. I think it was 9,000 something, right? And everybody else was 8,000 something, 7,000, between 5,000 to 8,000. But go and check the UNC. 16,000, 15,000, 17,000, that kind of thing. We don't get those margins. And even in the seats that we call stronghold seats. Why is that? Because the UNC has successfully been able to convince PNM supporters that the PNM does nothing for you. So you have people like Omari Hines who will talk that rubbish, right? Who will talk that rubbish and so what the PNM did for the constituencies that they don't hold. I, as a candidate last year, went to the commissioning of a water booster station in the constituency of Komoto Manzanilla, which is a UNC seat. And while I was there, Rai Ragbear, who at the time was the MP, when he came to give his remarks, was in high praise of Marvin Gonzalez and the PNM. And he told the audience all the things that Marvin did for him in his constituency, a UNC constituency. He brought remarks about how constituents from there told him to express their gratitude to Marvin and the PNM for what they did with respect to water, improving the water situation in the constituency of Komoto Manzanilla. So when people like Omari Hines want to come here and talk nonsense about what the PNM do in constituencies that they didn't hold, you know what I will tell you? The PNM had to take some licks. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Has to take some licks for not doing a better job of telling the population all the things that they did. They have to take licks for that, right? Because you still have people who support you and say, what did PNM do? Like Mr. Hines. Oh, what did PNM do for the time that they were there? And so on. The PNM did a lot. They just didn't tell the population. All right? But I don't know, well, clearly Mr. Hines, he says he's from South. And I've asked him the question every time he comes up with that. What is UNC doing in San Fernando, in South for you? The PNM has given you all a whole waterfront project, which included housing and other commercial opportunities and so on. That was an active construction site up until 28th of April, and perhaps a little while longer, right? Today, what is it? Anything happening down there? No, people were employed on that project. Money was being spent on that project. And when it was completed, it would have changed the skyline, the San Fernando skyline. And so on. The UNC was in power for 2010 to 2050. What did they do for San Fernando? They converted a building that the PNM built into a teaching hospital. That was supposed to be an office complex that was supposed to reduce the rent that the state was paying for private premises in San Fernando to house state entities. Tell us something what did the UNC do for San Fernando? What has Mr. Dowlat done since he has been there in the last year? Anything of substance? Is he advocating? They bring the lady from the UAE with her delegation, and they took them down to that waterfront site, and they carry them there, and they show them, and they point out, look this, we have this here, you could do this, you could do that. And I made the point before, they didn't even put down 2 tents, not even 1 tent, and some chairs to say, well, let's have a brief ceremony here for half an hour or 45 minutes where we could discuss and do a little presentation. Nothing. They didn't even walk with umbrellas and the sun hot. Julian walking fast with them, and they point out here, if they spend 20 minutes there, they spend plenty, they jump back in the car. What assessment could you have done in 20 minutes to convince these people to come and spend their money to revive that project? So if you don't get any expressions of interest for it, that is just going to stay there and gather moss and dust flying, and nothing is going to happen there. Right? Just like you're seeing with some of the housing projects that were under construction under the PNM, that again, like 2010, when they abandoned the Poyo Court in Malabar and left it. I'm reading an article today, and I think it's in The Guardian, talking about some of these HTC projects where vandals have now moved in within the last day, and in Terrestrial, they've stolen the sink, toilet, other fixtures, pipe, you name it. They've gone into the electrical and pull out the wiring and all kind of thing to sell the copper. They've just basically left these units bare, stripped them bare. The same thing they did in Poyo Court. When I used to be walking around the Larry Gomes Stadium every evening, and I saw the galvanized fence went first, and then you see the doors went and other fixtures, and they've come back into office and allowed the same thing to happen again. But you want to spend $3.4 billion. You want to give out contracts for $3.4 billion to build new housing units, and those projects that were well advanced, you just leave them in abeyance. Just as they did with Verfort, just as they did with Real Spring and Valsain, they've come back into office and done the same blasted thing. And people are desperate for housing and projects that are between 80 to 90% complete, and just to finish it and distribute. You all just leave it there and talking about everything is under review. Right? It took the PNM when they came back in 2015 to fix the mess that they left in Napoyo and in Verfort, finish it. Today, Napoyo Court is finished, fully occupied, and the PNM came in and built additional units there. And Napoyo Court is one of the, from what I have seen, one of the better HTC housing developments. When I was campaigning, I saw, and I went inside that area, and I looked inside one of the person's house, even the external design, everything. And I could not believe this was an HTC development. But they come back in office and do the same thing. And every day when I'm in my office and I pull my blinds and I look across and I see this building that should have been almost complete to house the Ministry of Social Development, and I keep talking about that. I passed there Friday evening and I'm looking and I'm seeing where they had already started to put in the glass fixtures and so on. And moss has already started to develop on the brickwork. Right? But that building was well advanced. The same thing with the building that was supposed to house the destitute down on South Key as you enter in City Gate there. Same thing. Abandoned. But we're giving out contracts to build $3.4 billion worth of housing. These projects are left abandoned and quite likely will continue to be so. But it is what it is. Wilbos is saying those house contracts are not about building homes, about building millionaires so that they could buy a picture of the PM for $250,000 and hidden kickbacks. And I agree, that is just ready to pay back these people for the money that they would have spent for the UNC in the election campaign. That's all it is. Because you're giving out these contracts to build houses, as much as $1 billion in housing. What's the cost per unit? Where is that information? All right. So for all you know, we see you issue a contract and 10 days stand still. So in that 10 days, any of the other persons who might have bid and didn't get through, they could now challenge, right? Before the contracts are issued and signed off and issued. $1 billion. How do we know that you're going to build or construct $1 billion worth of housing? Right? And not that you're going to build 400,000 worth or 500,000 worth of housing and then build the HTC. Because my understanding how that is supposed to work, the HEC will provide the land, these persons will bring the capital, they build the houses, they work out to the HEC, okay, what is the average cost of production for a unit, plus they would have their markup because they need to get their profits and the HEC has to get compensated for the land. And that will determine the final price that they would charge for these houses. But it's basically you have private contractors who are saying, here, what now? We looking to build houses, right? And we approach the government and we work out something with the government. So we will build houses and the government is going to provide us with guaranteed sales for our houses, something that other private developers do not have. So all over the country where you have these private developments, you spend your money and you advertise and you hope people have the money and they will come and buy. So you have to go out marketing and pushing your units. But these contractors, they say, yeah, well, we will build, right? And the HEC saying, well, we have over 160-something thousand, almost 200,000 people looking for housing. So you build it, and then all these people who have already gone to the TTMB and wherever else and gotten their financing and they've been approved for this amount or whatever amount, as soon as you finish and these are available, you'll just send it to us and we will distribute it. And the people will go to their mortgage companies and they will get the money. The mortgage company will send the money to us and then we will pay you. We take out our portion and then we pay you. That's like me saying, well, I'm going to open a chain of grocery stores, right? And I know that every government ministry has to purchase grocery items. They need items for cleaning supplies. They need things like for the kitchen, the coffee and the tea and the milk and water and all of these different things, toilet paper, all of these different things. And I go to the government and I say, well, here, what? I'm opening a chain of grocery stores and I'm willing to give the government a discount, right? So if you all buy from me, I'll give you a 15% discount on everything that you buy. You know, I say, well, no problem. You bill it and we will just instruct all of our ministries to buy from you and you will be the sole supplier. Right? And we good. And you get us a 15% discount, so we're saving some money, and we will guarantee and we will send you customers, guaranteed customers. It's the same thing going on up in here. But we don't know how much a house, the construction cost of the house. We don't know anything, how many units each of these contractors are supposed to build. No information in the public. We just see this thing, this advertisement come out. These are the list of the contractors and this is the value of the contracts. Nothing else. So we don't know anything else. What is the experience? Nothing. We don't know about it. They're just going and build a house. And where are they going to build these houses? Right? They've restarted the pineapple development in my constituency in earnest. For a while, I was seeing nothing happening there. And I asked David Lee, and I asked him about a month ago, and he said, yes, that project is still on. Nothing was taking place, and all of a sudden, I see the heavy equipment has now rolled back in, and they're going at pace. But I understand they figure that because the vote differential in the last election speaks more to a marginal seat than a PNM stronghold, that they figure if they complete these projects and put their people there, that somehow they could vote apart, and that could help them in the next election to be able to hold on to this seat. Right? But I would have them to understand that 2025 was an anomaly, okay? Because Lisa Morris Julian won this seat in 2020 by some 6,000 votes, right? Some 6,000 votes. So this was a stronghold. Just like and the UNC's increase wasn't that great. I think they probably got an additional 1,000 and something votes last time. The PNM's vote count dropped significantly. Why? Because people were telling me they were upset with the party and they didn't vote. Party Kutu is saying UNC could say what the hell they want. 2015, Dr. Rowley met 3-day money in the treasury to run the country. And behind that, we had a pandemic called COVID and nobody lost a job. Exactly. Petal Felix is saying that tomorrow PNM having something on the landlord tax in Diego Martin, a discussion. Yeah, so we're having a public meeting at the community center on Wendy Fitzwilliam Boulevard. All right, so if you all are so inclined and you live within the area, please come out in your numbers. Oh boy. Right. So I think that's it for today, folks. We will chat again soon. Some Clayton Smith is saying it is alleged that one of the contractors was planning to build a building that would be used as headquarters. I did read about that. PF Cutters is saying UNC is going to give us, according to what Minister Pyrat says, when the upgrade of the Lupino wastewater plant finishes, people will get an improved supply of poop water east-west corridor. Volsang is saying just monitoring the depth of ignorance the P on them has the minds of brothers and sisters at. Really? You should look at the depth of ignorance and stupidity that the UNC has on their cult. Right? That imagine you could defend a party that fired thousands of people, of the poorest of the poor, fired them. These people who were employed when the PNM was there. They have done absolutely nothing, precious little to nothing at all to bring any relief to these people. These people who have bills to pay, children to send to school, households to support, right? And you all say absolutely nothing in defense of these people, only talking a pack of crap about it had corruption and the PNM only cared about the contractors and they didn't care about the people. Really? 331 contractors as opposed to over 11,000 workers? That's your best defense? So the UNC shut down the program, and some of these contractors had money. Some of them not struggling like the poor workers who suffer the most. And just to correct something, a piece of nonsense I saw Omari Hines put up just now about CPF workers were receiving less than minimum wage. I don't know where the hell you all come from with this stupidness and this dotish shit. New rubbish. Right? Let me just read a little bit of this for the benefit of Omari Hines. Article dated the 9th of October 2019. Minister, 9,000 CPEP workers to benefit from pay hike. Approximately 9,000 CPEP program contractors, forepersons, operators, and laborers stand to benefit from a 15% salary increase from December 1st, 2019. Rural Development and Local Government Minister Kazim Hussain, under whose purview CPEP falls, gave a breakdown of the number of CPEP employees who will receive bigger salaries in a release issued. His comments came hours after Finance Minister Colin Burt announced in his 2020 budget presentation of a 15% pay hike for CPEP's entire workforce. Fees paid to its contractors would also be increased by the 15%. Hussain viewed the proposed salary increases as well deserved. A CPEP laborer who now earns $90 a day will now take home $103.50. So you tell me, Omari Hines, how that works out to be less than minimum wage. And how long a CPEP worker was working for? How many hours for the day? How the hell, in your estimation, that works out to less than minimum wage? But this is nonsense you all like to come with. PF Cutters is saying people said the PNM wasn't diversifying the economy. What was the Ministry of Youth Development? Exactly. That's what the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service was about. Providing youth with much needed skills outside of what they are accustomed to. For those who may not have been academically inclined and who are not looking to run down 8 and 10 and 15 CSEC passes, but those who got with their hands and who were looking for tech work. Right? So training people to be able to operate a crane. I said, I know one person personally who benefited from that program and was able to go abroad and get a job abroad, being able to operate a crane because he got that learning in Trinidad. Right? All of the fuse and the which was the one with T and Tech, where people were being trained to become linesmen and all of these different things. None of these programs exist today. We had the pipe, I think, which was, again, training them in plumbing and all of these different things to equip them with skills that they could use to become entrepreneurs. And of course, the Shade House program down in Tucker Valley, the 50 acres of land that the PNM took back from the 1% that the UNC between 2010 to 2015 gave 100 acres to plant onions for export. And instead of onions, you got a restaurant. Right? And a place to host parties and carnival fetes. That's what you got on arable farmland. When the PNM came in and they challenged and they took back 50 acres and said, this is for the young people, and set up the shade houses. But they want to say the PNM wasn't doing nothing for the youth, because you are, anyway. And the Youth in Agriculture Homestead program. can't stop talk about that, right? The money that the PNM wanted to create at least 1,000 entrepreneurs by 2025. By the end of 2025, 1,000, and then it was supposed to go to 1,500 entrepreneurs, where the government would have set aside, right, millions of dollars to give each of these persons at least $20,000 to start their business, as well as the training and the guidance to be able to run their business, not just come and take 20,000 and go and do whatever. We'd start you off, and if you need more money and you need the training, we will support you for the success of your business. What has this government replaced it with? What? Absolutely nothing. Philip, what's talking about is sports and sports and sports, as if sports is the be-all and end-all of everything. These students don't want to be involved in anything other than sports and sports. Kill them, that's all they could do. Train them in other things. Start building the workforce for the next 5 years and the next 10 years. This is the time when Form 4 and Form 5 students wondering what to do when they come out of school. And plenty of them will have absolutely nothing to do. They don't even have training to go to anymore. Right? Some sort of training offered by the government. They don't have that. So many of them are just like deer in headlights. They're doing CSEC in a couple months, and their head hot, wondering when I get my results, if I'm not going back to Form 6, if I don't have that option, what am I going to do? Because right now, when they leave school and come September or even August or whenever they get the results, plenty of them going to be sending out resumes and competing with people right now who had jobs, who lost their jobs, who were on contract with the government, and the government brought their contracts to an abrupt end. So the field of persons that they are now going to be competing with for jobs is much worse today than it was a year ago, when you had people who were employed, whether it be on 3-year contracts with the state and whatnot and so on, and now are today out of jobs and continue so to be. So it was going to be more difficult for them in September when they're sending out their resumes. So I don't know. Pressure. And parents who were saving to send their children to university and so on, many of them, I could tell you, there are persons who have pension plans that they have had to cash in because they need the money. Persons who have life insurance policies that they have had to cash in to access the cash surrender value because they need the money because they've lost their jobs. Right? That is what is happening. So the little savings that they've been building up for their kids since they were year high, right? A lot of these parents now have to come and cash in this because they need it to survive. Thanks to this administration, which tell you when UNC win, everybody's supposed to win. Rubbish. Right, and I'm saying, imagine what could the UNC do, beat a program that the PNM had for the youths. And only saying UNC only want Africans to learn hands up, hands out. No CCC, no youth, campus, MyLat, MyPad. Nothing. The UNC couldn't care less about the youth in this country, right? As I said, they figure everything is about sports, and more sports. I'm not giving them the life skills that they need to be able to function. So I am very concerned about a lot of these young people, some of whom are in Form 5, and who don't know what the future holds. Because I get all the time people sending me tons of resumes to my office in the hope that I can help them get jobs. A lot of them, some of them 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds looking for work. There's only so much. Even the OJT program, that and all, the stifling. So while that was a lifeline for some people, I don't know what is going to happen come September. But you get the government you vote for, yes? I'll tell them, go and learn AI. That seems to be the way to go. Sad. A bitch is saying they care about the youths, a yellow jersey with money wrapped up in it. And that's what the gentleman was saying in the article that I read. Right? The majority of the people were singing when UNC win and yellow is the code, benefiting from the PNM. And now today, the same activists all over social media cussing the UNC because they in this and they in that. But we warned you all. We warned you all. And it's not just any youth they don't care about, it is the black youth. I agree. Albert Rez is saying no word from tax group. Well, I suspect, well, Parliament goes on recess the first weekend, well, the second week in July until the second week in September. So if he doesn't bring it by middle May, he's probably going to come with it early in June, because we still have to go through the Standard Finance Committee and so on, portion of it. But so I suspect probably by mid-May or early June, he's going to, because he's currently out of the country and he's in Washington. And I suppose ministries and ministers are still collating all the requests that they would have gotten from various departments and so on to forward to the ministry for them to assess it and for him to determine how much money he's going to give out of those requests. And then, yeah, probably by mid-May. I think last year it was in early June, because they came into office in May, and then it was about due when they came into office. So look for it probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks or so. And the one last concern that I had with respect to these contracts given that is to be given out to these for the construction of these houses, we know that liquidity is a problem. The banks have been, well, the central bank has been sounding that alarm. Liquidity in the banking sector right now is very, very tight, right? So the banks now are on a drive to, as I've been told by somebody who works in at least one of the major commercial banks, right now the banks are on a drive to encourage people to make more deposits, right? Because they need money to lend. Money tight. So they're trying to find ways and means to encourage people to save more and spend less so that they could take in deposits to be able to lend. So if that is the situation, and I know the central bank had to actually tighten their grip on the reserve ratio to be able to allow banks to hold on to a little more money to be able to lend. And there's only so much the central bank could do. So if that is the case, where are these 11 companies going to get $3.4 billion from, right, to build housing? And when the economy is so tight as it is, and the main entities that lend money are saying, hey, money tight. So where are they going to get this money from? Food for thought. Where is Felicia? In the garden hiding. Yeah, she's hiding. But enjoying the perks of office. And, you know, when you're board director again, you're a little kakadadi anymore. So she good. She good. She has no worries whatsoever financially. Sandra is saying, I understand from reliable sources that there will be no more money to pay daily rated workers in a few months. Well, I saw this project that they had, where they hired people, the 1,800 persons who were hired under the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. And they have some challenges in getting monies transferred from the Unemployment Relief Fund, right? So right now, Jolene up a gum tree, right, to be able to get money to pay workers for that project. So stay tuned, folks. We will see what happens. Never a dull moment. So let's see what this week brings. And yeah, we'll meet back again here next week, Sunday, God's willing. All right. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday, your weekend, and it may be a productive week. Dunce will get money from Daddy Trump. That's what they're hoping for. That's what they wish. But right now, Daddy Trump fighting the Pope. So yeah, time with we. He got what he wanted from the mistress of the mask. We'll chat again soon.